City Council, May 26, 2021. I'll rise and sing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Please silence your cell phones. Meeting details have been placed on the agenda to allow council and staff and the public to participate in the meeting via teleconference via the governor's executive order 9-29-20. There will be limited public access to the council chambers. Thank you. Also, if you're dialing in, just raise your or do *9 to raise your hand to speak during the meeting. Speakers will be asked to identify themselves. Let's jump into public comment. This is a time for public comment. Council may ask questions, but may take no action during the public comment section of this meeting, except to refer to staff that they prepare a report or place an item on the future agenda. If you are here to make comments on a specific item, you may speak at that time. If not, this is the time. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Speakers, please speak from the podium, state your name, mailing address, so staff can respond to you in regards to this comments or provide you with information appropriate. You are not required to state your name and address if you do not desire to do so. Do we have any public comments? Out there? Okay. We will move on to the budget workshop. Who wants to start this off, Retta? Or Steve?
Actually, this is going to be a lot of orchestration by Finance Administrative Services, so I think that I'll let her take the lead on giving us illustrated as different people come up with the program. And giving us the background too.
Brian is city staff and member from the public and online member from the public. One week, so I thought we'd kind of start this off with a little bit of fun. And there's actually, it'll make sense maybe in the end. But the city of Yreka is about, on any given year, we're probably about 5.5 to 6 million general fund, operating fund city. Our enterprise funds run about normal operating is about 2.7 in the water and the wastewater operating. So all that together about 5.5 there again. Then we have our special revenue, our gas street funds, and also again consolidated a few normal operating grants. So that makes us about aggregated a $15 million city normally. Any kind of plus or minus any given budget year. So we have tennis balls, each worth $3 million. And each of you have $3 million representing the aggregate of the city. And that's like our normal year. But what we're going to do is accrue tennis balls through this presentation and start juggling them. And the purpose of this is to kind of illustrate in a fun way what we've got churning behind the scenes. And I want to say it's all very positive, the kind of money that's coming into the city. However, with that, there's responsibility and overhead to ensure that all these things happen on time and flow. So that's what we're kind of going to illustrate with that. And I hope you just kind of have fun with me a little bit on this, because sometimes we get too serious sometimes a little bit, and I know we've all had a month of meetings and things like that. So what I did kind of want to cover today is what that you get to hear from the department heads, and we kind of I've got notes from all the budget workshops and all, and kind of I've annotated it, and we've kind of all shared those notes. So there's going to be some narrative to that. We're going to go over the org chart and personnel changes, because that has been tremendous. I will have to get you the percentage of FTE turnover, but I'm guessing it's right at the 30 to 40% range. And finally, I wanted to touch on into capital projects. and kind of using some less than beautiful slides, but again, I kind of wanted it a little more interactive and dynamic. And kind of just going through it. To me, you know, if I can't touch it or see it, it's hard. Maybe I know you said that, it's like, show me what it looks like, you know, so I can relate to it. On that. So if you'll humor me along a little bit, we'll move right on into work charts. Does that sound like a great way to start? Okay. And Arthur said he'd help me display that so you can see it online. And some of you in the finance committee, I know, have already seen that, but we're going to kind of just, one thing we're trying to lock in right now is position control, which is a term, position control, meaning the budgeted positions that you have within the organization. So within I'm going to call the general positions of administration, we have the city council, of course, the city attorney who's on contract, the city manager. We always hold out there a placeholder for the deputy city manager, but we haven't come to the point of allocating resources for it. We have the public works director, the projects managers, and the city clerk project manager. We are kind of looking at restructuring, and you'll see this on June 1st with the meeting, the planning building, and looking at taking the planning, and Liz will probably speak to this a little bit, or Steve, when we get into that part of the, but looking at economic, it really, I think we're going to start the economic community development director, and looking at getting compensation that will attract, you know, externally a community development director of the same level or grade as I am on there. We may, looking at contract planning services, that may or may not work. We had it on there, exclusively on that. We've got a building official. Again, we're looking at transit. So new there, building official for contract services. And Liz, is it okay if I announce it in the next year? So Liz, the reason, one thing I wanted to call out is Liz is planning to retire in the next fiscal year.
No.
And so that's why that's kind of getting restructured. And so the person that's not here is going to inherit the building oversight, a physical tech. And so she's going to speak to some state opportunities that might allow us to, state grant opportunities might allow us to find somebody for housing and homelessness coordination. Questions on that? Hopefully this isn't related. Okay. Next is finance and administration. So we, on April 2nd, we approved the grant fiscal compliance manager. And as you understand, if these balls multiply, why that's going to be important to the city. And we're already up on that position. We had approval at that meeting. We also are in the process of recruiting an HR coordinator / or HR analyst slot. And we're in the process of interviews on that. We have then senior fiscal and admin techs. We also have the payroll, fiscal and admin tech. And then I have information technology services under me on contract. And finally, I'm going to kind of move over and police chief, and then we'll kind of move on into the police department's work chart. So next slide, Arthur. Wait, sorry, any questions on that or ready to move on? Okay, no surprises there. Okay, next slide. Within the police department, we have right now interim police chief, and that's Chief. And then within that, we have the administrative secretary, the record specialist. That's going to we have police lieutenant, detective, animal control, code enforcement, 4 sergeants, and then the sworn officers. And so if you count everybody that wears a badge, there's 15 positions of those that are sworn. So when I say officers, I usually mean sworn, meaning they carry a badge, not that they're in the field, but that they carry. Is that the right word? Yes. Thank you. Okay. It's something. And finally, we have also vacancy in animal control. And over in the animal control, there are some part-timers. And then we have 5 full-time dispatchers over in PD. So we do have vacancies. We are in the process of recruiting, and I'm gonna, any questions on police department right now? So that's what we're looking to budget, 15 sworn. Okay, thank you, Arthur. Next one. All right. So now we get to a big chart. Public Works, what's going on over there? So we have the Public Works Director over here. We have Pace Engineering for contract services, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, we refer to him as our city engineer, and I put engineer/engineers because yep. And we have been the GIS specialist. We have purple, a new position coming online. We'll be talking to, it's called construction wastewater evaluator. We'll be bringing that to you on June 1st and explaining the need and how that's going to work. Again, by the time we get through the tennis balls, hopefully it'll make sense. And that's, we'll spend some time to speak to that. Then under the maintenance and operations manager, we have the facilities as well as the street, sanitary sewer, storm water, water distribution, storm drain maintenance, traffic signs, pavement marking, street lights, parks, fleet management, and there's just not enough to wrap all the things that they do over there. It's a lot, and facility on that, but and under that's the maintenance and operations supervisor. And then within that, we have senior maintenance workers who oversee the work of the maintenance workers. When I say oversee, they lead crew teams, and then you have kind of a crew leader, supervisor. Foreman. Yeah, I don't know if I can say foreman anymore, but and then you have senior mechanic, and we have been through interviews on that and have found some promising candidates. So kind of that's where all that's falling out. So the big change that Matt will probably be speaking to you on that is that Tim is retiring out as our fleet manager, and then we're kind of doing a little bit of consolidation through there. The next thing is the fiscal and admin tax. We've got one down in Public Works and one that will be here at City Hall for now, supporting Public Works administration and capital projects. And the TINS also help. The wastewater, as you know, the manager of the plant retiring, and we have with the event star policy been able to fill that and also fill that vacancy, and we also have an operator in training. So we have, let me say, when I filled that vacancy, we have found a candidate to fill, we're doing background on to fill that vacancy. So, and the water services, we have the water manager. Rob is looking at transitioning, and he is also eligible for retirement here very soon. And if you kind of will go into that construction field, tech, that it might be the transition fund to keep him a little longer. And a lot his infinite amount of knowledge, especially with this ARC project coming up. And then kind of infilling within the water division and passing on that knowledge. And finally, we'll jump into any questions on that.
Real quick, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think you explained this stuff before, but in case somebody else doesn't know, because I forgot. Can you explain what the color coordinating is again? Why you colored them? Or the purple, the blue, the green, and the orange?
Thank you for calling that out. The oranges that we're in recruitment on.
Okay, thank you.
And the purple means there's probably going to be intermission.
Okay, I thought somebody, I forgot, in case anybody else didn't know out there as well.
Yeah. And everything is moving so much.
Right.
As soon as I get a name in, it moves. So, and in the final, which I would like to represent is the fire department. And we have our fire chief, Chief Linus, and right now their structure is first assistant, chief, and right now they receive a very small stipend for that. And then we have and 3 lieutenants and total roster of 16, and I think Jerry just saw graduation for, scroll down a little longer, we have 16 to 4, started out with 4, not all of them, but some stay for the whole time, but COS cadets, or what we refer to as sleepers, meaning they housing at the fire hall on that. So once we kind of lock in and give authority on these positions, which will be addressing some of these changes and salary schedule changes that we've already discussed for in looking at the city manager's compensation range, we've already discussed. We'd like to bring to you the community planning director compensation range. And we'd also like to introduce to you the water and wastewater construction field observer position. So that would be on contract.
Okay.
So with that, I'm going to now let the department heads kind of speak to their operating and operations. And then with that, we're going to kind of jump into the volume of capital projects. Any questions on that though? Is this kind of what you're looking to find out more about?
No questions?
I know you'd like total numbers, and it's like they're
Yeah.
hurting, they're coming. But it's just not here for this evening, so.
It's a lot of
But at least you
numbers, I'm
have
sure.
kind of the open, and I think one thing is really getting the position control locked in too will help, and the distribution of all those, you know, across the cost centers. So, all right, so I think
Who's up?
who's
Who's
up
on
first?
Yep, who's up the bat?
So Liz, you want to go first?
I'm not sure what you're asking of me, Red. I don't have any capital projects.
No, this is just the operations.
So
There's
Liz,
not much changing except for the salary schedule, which you do the magic on that.
so let me cover the planning stuff, because that's, she's the deputy planning director, and she wants to make sure that I keep knowing that I'm planning director.
Thank you
So-
for that.
Yes, so kind of what we're looking at in the restructure, and can you pop that, is that something you can pop back up on the screen? It's just for, well, a minute like that. What we're looking at right now, the city manager has been the planning director, I don't know for how long. And there's been a lot of increase in workload on a whole bunch of things. Also, the planning stuff is going, and Liz will chime in on this in a minute on some of the projects that we have going. But what I'm looking at doing is creating a position, which I think we might call it community development director. Talk to our consultant, and that is a common title for a planning director, where it includes more than just planning. For example, we also have building services in there. Right now, Dave Smith is trying to train his replacement, so that should happen this summer. And if all goes well, there's been some delays in that because of COVID and testing opportunities and that sort of
He
thing.
does have somebody lined up already?
Yes, he does.
Oh,
He's been taking them on inspections.
Oh, good.
lately.
Good.
We still have the planning consultant, eCore, that we use. And as you may recall, when we first were talking about the long-term strategy for how we would replace the institutional knowledge of Liz as both the planning and the city clerk, we discussed that in the event that she left, we needed to fix the city clerk. That's why Arthur is in that role. And then the other thing, on at least a temporary basis, we could use eCore, who can provide all those services, although they're far enough away that the daily planning services would be very expensive for them to provide to us, and they'd be pretty limited. So, but they're the backup. They have the knowledge and the training and that sort of thing. And then the other thing that we've talked quite a bit about, although maybe not exactly in this context, is how much homelessness has impacted our city through all kinds of things. And so I have not been able to determine yet whether or not some of the funding sources that are coming down from the federal government for COVID relief or from the state government for basically homeless and transitional housing purposes can be used to hire a staff member. But I think that, like, for example, if the money from, is it called ARPA? The rescue plan, whatever. it's called, ARPA. I won't bark, we're in the meeting. So if that could be used for like 2 years to bring someone in, and this wouldn't be to try to deal with the daily encampments or anything like this. This would be that next level up that we really have tried to do, which is to locate funding sources, because more of them are coming down the pipe now. Most of the funding that's come in so far has either been in the form of things that can go towards county services that, because they're doing the homeless, or can go towards transitional housing, which there is an entity that's building they don't know whether they've gotten the grant yet, but if they're successful with the grant, they would like to build a 50 unit transitional housing / affordable housing, with some transitional units, some affordable. But we need that next step to establish programs between the county and the city to look for funding sources, to work with local nonprofits, to try to figure out how to manage the homeless program on the side of making shelter, transitional housing, the urban campground, all those sort of things available. Because basically the Boise decision makes it very hard for us to do anything with the negative consequences of people camping everywhere on public property, and also to get people into the system so that they're getting them off of homelessness. So anyway, that's a long explanation of why I think that would be a position very distinct from code enforcement and what the police are doing and what public works is doing to try to get ahead on planning. But I do think it's something that we should look for grant money for.
Definitely.
Okay. So, and then the other part is to move the planning stuff away. Maybe I already said this, to the planning department as opposed to having city manager do that. That'll free up some time to do managing.
Yeah.
Although Liz has done a great job of doing that.
Say the least. Excellent job.
Let me see, I'm just kind of going through the notes. Okay, there's a few projects that I want to mention. I'm going to mention a couple of them, and then I'm going to ask Liz to mention some of these you've heard before, so we'll just go through it briefly. One of the things we're looking at doing is the wetlands out on Philippi. Those are currently, that status of that project is that the consultants have sent that to the Army Corps of Engineers to get that determination that a fairly small part of the property that we own out there is in wetlands. So we're working on that. We don't have a good timeline on that because we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers. We already talked about the transition. There will be there's some planning support for certain other things that you may not think of as planning support, but for example, we're trying to get the stream bed the stream bed maintenance permit. And we've had to bring in some people from ECOR because they have the biologists that can talk to the state. And then also when we get to the fire station planning grant, which you notice I've just assumed we're going to get because that's the right thing. There's also some planning services that will end up supporting that activity as well. Liz, could you just sort of briefly mention the current planning projects and then maybe briefly talk about the SB2 grant and the LEAP, and then I'll talk a little bit about the homeless allocation, and we'll read.
Sure, we've got 4 major projects that we've been juggling. One of them we've been working on for 6 years, and I keep telling you how excited I am about it, but I think it's gonna happen someday. So on the 16th, we've got the tentative parcel map and the proposed RVs that will go before the planning commission June 16th fairly sure we've got it buttoned down. Matt and I were just discussing the parcel map 10 minutes before this meeting. So it's a moving target, and thank God Matt can juggle many projects at a time. We're also looking at the Siskiyou Crossroads 50-unit apartment complex. Because it's an approved use, it's an administrative permit, which means it's done all in-house. But I've had to send it out to the fire department, police department, public works, and so all the departments can look at it, chime in. This is early on because it's actually part of the grant process. They hope to hear if they got the grant by mid-June. So if that goes, there'll be more steps. So this is just the site plan, but it's still exciting.
Gotcha.
The Refresh Travel Plaza is the second truck stop that I've been talking to you about for years. It's turned into a very complex issue. We originally planned to take that to planning on the 16th as well, knowing that because it's a planned unit development. Hi, Joan.
What's it called? The refresh?
It's Refresh Travel Plaza. Because it's a planned unit development that was approved back in 1998.
Oh,
We've got many things that just aren't the same right now. So a planned unit development goes to the planning commission for recommendation, but it's got to come to the city council for approval. It's started to become a little contentious. I've got people calling in and giving me hate mail, and so we're going to be turning it over to the city attorney to make sure we've dotted all our i's, crossed all our t's. At the best, I'm hoping that'll make it to planning in July. And then finally, we've got the liquor land complex, north end of town. Manny, I'm sure he's talking, buying you guys all the bottles of wine every year. He's got this fantastic idea to set up, it'll be a fueling station, a liquor store, perhaps a drive-through. He's just having to work with the adjacent property owner to get some additional land, so there'll be room to put in the above-ground fueling tanks. So those four are our major projects we've got right now. In addition to that, we've got the two planning grants that you guys, we've already talked about before. The first one is the SB2. That's $160,000. We've got through December 31st, 22. Deliverables include inventory of vacant land, enhancement creation of a GIS-based asset management system, housing element update, just the bare minimum, we get into that later, and the creation of objective design and development standards. The LEAP grant, which is a local early action planning grant, is for $65,000. And we have until June 30th, 2024. Deliverables include updates to the safety element of the housing, and addition of something new called environmental justice policies, and also an updated circulation element. On June 16th, eCorp is going to do a PowerPoint presentation to give you a little bite of the apple of what the new things that the state is requiring us to put into our housing element. I want to invite all the council members, but I really encourage you to come, because we're going to be coming, or somebody's going to be coming before you guys, to pick your pockets. We need some money to do these things. So it's exciting, but it's also mandated on us without, I mean, these grants don't even touch the surface of what they're asking of us. But if you want, please calendar for June 16th, so you at least, you can zoom in and see the PowerPoint.
Sure, so basically it's an unfunded mandate.
Yes.
Okay. We have to do it, but we get no money for it.
And in reality, our general plan is supposed to be updated in 2022, which could be the tune of $300,000 to $500,000. We kicked that can down the road. We're hoping if we do the housing element portions, that they'll pity us a little bit and let us go. Usually those are the portions that are the requirements for the federal grants. First thing they do on that checklist, Cindy will go, oh, Liz, are you updated on your housing element? And I can tell her yes for now, but next year, somebody's gonna have to tell her yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions?
So follow behind you, you have one, as we go to our grant chart, we've got SB2, 165,000. We
160.
60, thank you. Sorry.
160?
160.
Gonna put that up there?
And we
65.
65. Is that only way I remember it's when I write it, and then I kind of remember it.
Yeah.
We've been 65.
And the others I don't know about.
Steve's estimates, when I talked to him, we're on the state balancing allocations, we think we'll have 111,000 on the first installment. These are rough numbers. So
Yeah,
they'll hold me to them.
Just put 111 plus or minus, just because
Yeah.
I was trying to get to the server and double check those numbers and then.
And then the second allocation, which sounds like we'll also be entitled for, is 151,000. So in addition to all the other projects that Liz has got going, I think you're entitled to a tennis ball to add so you can draw a tennis ball to add to the bouncing balls that are in the city right now. If you want to.
Do I get a tennis ball?
Yes, they just,
Okay.
department head, yes, you do.
Okay.
There we go.
You want me to throw it at you? It's just too.
I have one. Are we supposed to grab another one?
I think so. I don't know.
What are we supposed to do with the tennis?
Did you say grab another one? Or just Steve?
So
Just Steve.
Oh, Steve,
I
okay.
got it. Do you
I get
want mine?
it.
No, 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 no. Do that, Steve.
What is
Just
it
one.
for?
We're fine.
We'll find out. if-
We're gonna play tennis. I'm gonna.
To interact with products, the project we have.
I'm just glad my dog is around.
Multiple.
So,
We're throwing him whoever came late.
You know, the good news is I was not in the wreck.
Oh,
That is good
The wreck
news.
on I-5, yeah.
boy.
Well, we were hoping you weren't.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't. No, I don't know who was. I didn't see him. I got off the freeway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I got my tennis ball for completing the presentation, but I am still willing to answer questions if you like, if there are any, but I think it's fairly straightforward. There's a lot of work there. And then we also are looking at reconstituting the department to see if there's money available for the homeless
Yeah.
coordinator.
When you say plus or minus on here, we say plus or minus probably no more than $10,000 to $20,000.
Yeah.
So we can safely assume this is probably somewhere between 90 and 111 and between 130 and 151. I mean,
I think that they're actually probably pretty accurate. It's
Yeah.
just that neither Red or I like to give you final numbers without checking. And,
Understood.
this-
Well, the state likes to change and the feds like to change the numbers.
Well, it was mostly because I just couldn't get my phone to get to the server. So anyway, with the state, they bounced me out.
Joan, we kind of early on went through the org chart, and I think we had already talked to some
I
of those
saw that.
changes at the
Yeah.
finance committee, so we'll just keep going if that's all right.
Keep going.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, anything else?
Good to
Okay.
go.
And we do have food when you're ready to. play. We
Okay.
grab some food.
Oh, good. I'll get lunch.
Yeah.
You're like all of
That's
us.
what I'm
We didn't eat
sure
today.
you want stuff all day
Yep.
today. So thank you, Liz and Steve. I wanted to kind of touch over, maybe if I can, to. Let's keep going. Yeah, great. And so kind of looked at that, and he's gonna talk kind of about his budget changes and horizon issues.
You may want to come up.
Yeah.
Microphone.
Just so that people, well, so that Tanya on the phone can hear.
Yes.
Hi, Tanya, wherever you are.
I'm not exactly sure how in depth you want me to get on it, since this is only day 3. And only week 2 of me even being here. So. But we've got a huge, hiring issue going on right now. So we're trying to fill positions for patrol. I've got an animal control. I just did testing yesterday, so I've got a position for animal control that's in backgrounds right now. We've got a couple officer positions that are in backgrounds. We're gonna probably have to continue to test, fill some more of those. There'll be some promotions inside the department. We have one employee that put in a resignation for a couple months down the road. Plenty of those, she's changing fields. So we'll have to fill that through an internal promotion, which might open up another position to handle where that comes from. So my biggest issue right now is staffing. We are bare bones.
Yep.
It's just it's very frustrating. Everyone's on overtime every day.
Yeah.
It's a lot of overtime.
drawing on the limb, that's for sure.
So that's the everyday functions of that. Then one of our biggest issues is the homelessness, transients camps and all that. And, the buildings that are run down in Yreka. So we've got code enforcement officers been working on that. We're actually making a lot of headway. She's doing a wonderful job. But part of making headway, you have a trough behind you where people want money. So that's been for us to continue with this, we have to keep putting hands out for more money to do something. So then it becomes an issue. Do we have funds to do it? Yes or no? That's an issue we're working through right now, which I think the city is helping us with. Which are making these good things. And then equipment wise, we've got issues with some rifles that we need. We're using Vietnam era ARs right now that are well past being dated. And the officers are just carrying their own rifles. So, you know, we need that as a need. We have some infrastructure that has to be replaced. You know, they have 5-year windows on shelf lives. We're planning a few things that are 7 years right now, and nothing's ever cheap. So those are about our biggest budget issues. And then there might be some audit stuff with me stepping in as the interim, whether I stay, don't stay, whatever. When you get a new chief in place, you usually should, I don't think it's a law, but you usually should audit an evidence room to make sure whatever because I'm signing everything, so I'm responsible for all this, that there isn't something missing. A year from now, they're gonna ask me where it is. It could be any kind of evidence. And with that would come like a computer system to make sure that our mainframes and everything are the way they're supposed to be. I'm taking full responsibility for everything. So typically when someone steps in, we want to check and make sure everything is correct, current, and up to date. And then minor issues like I'll be counting down, checking through stuff like that. That doesn't really cost anything. But outside audits could cost money. So about the only real issues I have would be addressed as a budget issue as far as what we're working on.
Where are we on that? Automobiles, police cars, are we due for any of them or
We
We're
got
on.
2 coming.
two coming?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, the microchip issue is holding them up, I
Right.
believe, right now. I think all cars are stuck in that. We got one that's coming in that's in here. I think it's getting fixed up. Is that
That's
right?
getting the wiring.
Detailed.
Yes.
And then the next one don't look for it till April 22 is what I'm hearing.
So the 2 that we have coming, one is a replacement, one is really bona fide new. One is a replacement for the one that was totaled in the chase.
Well, I believe so. I'm stepping into
Yeah,
this. I
no,
wasn't part of it.
There was
This
one
one
total,
was-
right.
One total, that's being
Right,
replaced.
and then we had one with the tribe supplies.
Yep.
The tribal replacement
Yeah,
one.
and then we're replacing one
Yeah.
there.
And that will be, April will be timing out that older vehicle anyway on the IGA agreement.
Oh,
So
good.
they should pick up the tab on that.
And then as far as the tribe goes, it's probably a legal question. But do we have any wiggle room with them looking at, breaking ground on a motel and looking at how often YPD is up there? Do we have any wiggle room with negotiations for them to pick up a little more in the law enforcement end?
We have, I don't know the numbers right in front of me, but we certainly can get back to you. The current intergovernmental agreement between the city and the tribe does contemplate a phase 2. And there are some increased numbers, but I don't remember off the top of my head with what they are.
Do we have to be does our contract with them automatically invite us up to the casino to drive through, or do we have to ask them every year, or is our compact with them, because it's sovereign land? So do we have to?
Well, PL 280 addresses that, so just because it's sovereign, still penal code laws, things that don't apply to like vehicle code. So like
Okay.
codified code doesn't apply, but PL 280 gives us authority to go up there and handle crimes. do
Okay.
things, and they're very cooperative with us. There's
Great.
no issues with them. We've
Okay.
got a new person in charge of security that's already called me and reached out, so there's no issues with that.
Thank you.
And just on the question, if I can add on to a little bit, what we're, so we are budgeting up to 15 sworn. I think I mentioned that before in the ARC chart. 15 sworn. And then the other thing was, we do invoice the tribe through the IGA or intergovernmental agreement with one officer. We bill them quarterly. On that, and then they every 40 to procure a new vehicle, and the vehicle And I'll catch up with you on that, because that kind of probably been transitioned, but, what to do with the old vehicle, since the tribe has rights to the old vehicle, but we could repaint it. It just needs a conversation.
Chief, what do you, let's throw out the patrol officers leaving in 2 months or 3 months. What is your timeline for bringing us up to the maximum that we have allotted for? To get, I know it takes a while to get somebody on.
Sure. Yeah, so as far as getting someone on, we're looking, the quickest we could do right now would be one, maybe in a couple of weeks. Probably month after that one for the second one. And then you have training. So to bring us to full staff, they'll be in an FTO phase, but we will have the physical body. That's only the two. We still got other backgrounds. Laterals could be quicker. Laterals could be, 5 to 6 weeks for a background, just depending on the forms we need. That's how long it takes. And then their training program could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they could be on the road, handling calls in 2.5 months from the day that we look at them. So I'm actively trying to approach laterals. I was going to discuss with the city about trying to offer the officers incentives to find laterals. We give them an incentive to hire people, but all the officers have friends. They've been to academies with people. We have young guys that have gone to the academy with people that don't have a job, or officers that went somewhere else and aren't happy. If I can offer the same incentive to an officer, half a rate or the same rate or whatever, and just tell the officer, you go find us a body for a lateral that we can bring in, put a badge on, he's working in 2 weeks, then we're willing to give you a reward for that. So that's something I'd like to see kicked around. And we just thought of it yesterday.
So offering an incentive to the officer that brings somebody in, an incentive to the officer who comes.
Correct.
Okay.
So they both receive an incentive.
Yeah. Does the officer that comes have to stay a year to get that incentive, or do they get part of it in 6 months, part of it in a year?
It's broken. So you get a little bit here, you get a little bit at a different time, and when you give them their conditional offer of employment, it shows the breakdown. So after their 12 months, they get this much.
And Retta, does that signing bonus also go into their retirement system? Do they, or is that not, is that outside of their retirement? So in other words, is there a double incentive for them to do it? I know when they're young, they don't think about that, but when they're our age.
No, it's not. It is not.
Okay,
It's
okay,
for
that's
retirement.
fine.
So I have a question,
Yes.
if I may. So is the signing bonus that we had agreed upon several years ago, how many years
Yeah,
ago,
there's a-
3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago? Is that still in place?
It is.
Because I wasn't, I just. didn't
I can
know.
get that to y'all if you're interested in seeing that.
That would be
It
good.
was adopted by the council.
Yes, it was. I
Yeah.
remember. But I just I thought it had a sunset on it.
It didn't really have a sunset on it, and it has continued to be, I won't say just useful, it has been critical at getting people.
I believe.
In recruiting people?
Absolutely, particularly the lateral, it has really helped.
Oh, yeah.
So, Chief, what about, what's our timeline, not as critical, I know, what's our timeline in your mind? The average to get the animal control officer screened, in, trained, and then out?
Sure. So we had testing yesterday. I went ahead and picked one. We have 3 good applicants. I picked the first one, and he's in backgrounds right now. And background, like I said, could take 5 to 6 weeks. That's just for a document that we have to do as part of the background. It takes that long. If it comes quicker, the background would actually be quicker. It can be done in 2 weeks or less as a local. And the training phase will be fairly quick for animal control, I think maybe 2 weeks. So I would give an estimate right now, maybe 2 months to have a fully functioning animal control on their own. Hopefully it could be less, but probably 2 months, just depending on some of these forms that have to come back.
And this is coming from me, not from the other counselors. I don't know how they feel about it, but I would like to see, after you've been there for, say, a month, I would like to come back and see, do we need another officer? Do we need one to add one more position? Because I know we're running several mornings. I don't want to say in a public meeting, but I know that it'd be nice to have another officer.
We are lightly staffed sometimes.
So I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'd like to have him come back and speak to us within about a month about,
Just give us some updates, sure.
whether we need to add, or what his thoughts,
I can tell you one thought I have right now that I'm trying to re-implement is the reserve program. We haven't had reserves for several
yes.
years.
Yeah,
So I've got a lot of peers
that's
out
good,
to level 2 reserves in the academy.
good.
have jobs in the area and they want to be in law enforcement as a level 2, they can't get hired anywhere.
Mhm.
Level 2s can still work with us. They
Yep.
still work, and it's a force multiplier.
That's awesome.
So I'm in the process of trying to recruit that right now.
You've been a busy boy.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All in 2
Thank you.
days. All in 2 days.
Exactly. My feet are hot from rolling around.
So
Debbie has a question. Debbie has a question.
I didn't want to interrupt Stephen. Okay, the gentleman or woman that is applying for the animal control position. We seem to be losing them because they really want to become police officers. Has this gentleman or person shown any interest in that? Are they?
No, I asked specifically on that question.
Okay.
So there's no academy, no, nothing with the background. If there was gonna be some that person would choose, they would still have to apply, go to academies and still be at least a year or 2 down the road. But right now, just animal control is the main interest. And I was asked them specifically what you said.
Yeah, thank you.
That's probably no way to know when you-
Yeah.
after they get in there.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to emphasize, because I think that most of the council, but I'm not sure all, because some of it was discussed at a finance committee meeting, but as the chief indicated, we will need some funding to complete the remediation of code enforcement houses. And so we're gonna just need to budget that because we've moved along this far. I think there's some good plans in place to move through our first incredibly difficult code enforcement where we're going in and having to get somebody to come in and remediate the property and then in turn around and charge the property for that. As we go through that process, there will be a little bit of a learning curve, both on what's the best way to do it, what did we learn from this one, and then how fast can we do it? Who do we get to do a whole lot of issues, but absent a budget, that could slow us down. So what we'll do is be bringing back to you a discussion on that. But just know that we're moving forward as if we do have the funding to do the remediation, because that's where we really need to get to go. We'll have to come up with cost estimates. I think any cost estimates we come up with will be low today, and they will increase, but it's something that I don't think that our community can afford to let stay in place. Of the people that will not cooperate, even when they've been fined, even when they've gotten a warrant, even when they've, all the stuff. There's a certain point where the city needs to step in, clean the property, there's some alternatives with that. And I don't want to go into great detail today, but just know that that's going to be something that we're looking for I don't even want to call it a placeholder in the budget, because almost anything could be used up.
Right.
But
And the finance committee is very supportive of it. We feel it's the right thing to do. We feel it's financially, it's the right thing to do. We feel it's numbers right now. We're probably being conservative, but we feel that.
And get started on it.
Yeah, because we need to get some of it done before,
Some of these things have been.
within the next 30 to 45 days.
Yeah,
They're time sensitive with the courts.
Oh, yeah.
right, and some of them have been
Yes.
around for years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of these issues have been going on for a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
thank you.
Any other questions or anything?
Oh, I wanted to share a tennis ball with my cousin. He earned it already.
Guess what I did? I chucked a tennis ball to
On
chief of
his feet
police.
and out and doing it, man. He's been busy, thank you.
So again, we do have food, but if you'd like to kind of keep on going while we're on the roll, we'll do
Yeah.
that. All right.
Good evening.
Howdy, howdy.
Evening, Chief Jerry.
How's everybody doing today?
I'm better now.
Yeah.
On the road.
Okay, basically, as far as the fire department goes, you're pretty aware of the bigger picture, the bigger projects that we're thinking of, but we'll get to that a little closer to the end. One of the things that Red and I were speaking about yesterday, it's a fairly minor thing in some regards, but when you add up the numbers, we all know that I've been preaching to you, telling you that we've been running more calls, so that means more
more effort by the volunteers to stay up with, you know, the call volume. So with that, we had talked about it during the budget meetings about increasing the per call pay on top of what we already get, another 50 cents for the first year, maybe another 50 cents the year after. So whether that total dollar comes in 1 year and we don't get anything this the next year, that's probably a decision that can be made fairly easily, but it's also something that I can go to the volunteers and say, hey, you know, the council believes in what we're doing, they're supporting us, and they think you guys deserve, you know, this amount. So, and as it is, we're still, you know, we're still doing the same job we've been doing.
Yeah.
Calls are still, you know, still getting up there. Anyhow, that's one issue there, which I think is one of the ones probably to deal with. Another thing that I think is a positive thing, and I wish I could have gotten it done already, but just for things being what they are, is cost recovery for vehicle accidents, negligent fires, things of that nature, where we can recoup some costs back into our offer so that we're not, you know, always on the other end, you know, with the volunteer department, to where we don't do that. Now, other departments have received, you know, $50,000 to $60,000 over a period of years. You know, it's not a cash cow, but it's a fair, and it's allowed by law to do that. And we have an agency or a private company that would help us with that. They do all the billing. All we do is get them the information. They bill it out and they take 10%. So that is something that Brett and I and Don will need to work on, you know, this coming fiscal year. And, you know, hopefully that will get implemented, and we have, you know, make it so that it's legal. Nobody has any questions or problems with it. And then we also have discretion, you know, the city, someone in the city who has a accidental fire, like, we're not going to charge them for anything because they're already paying taxes, right? We don't want to upset the apple cart and everything. So it would be for vehicle accidents on the freeway, diesel spills, things like that, where, you know, we can come up with a set of criteria that everybody's happy.
Oh, that'd be good.
Current year, fire mitigation and community outreach, we've been working with Fire Safe Council and other folks that want to get some projects done. We're getting closer with that. Of course, Corey was at a meeting with myself and some fire chiefs, Jay Perkins, et cetera. So that's still in the works right now. And hopefully we get that done before, I don't know if it'll happen before fire season. It's going to take some time to get the grant money, so to get that done, but we're pushing on that as fast as we can. Another thing that we are dealing with, and it's important to note, we don't want to gloss over it, but there is an effect to fire department as well for the homeless. The encampment up at Beaver Health, those calls seem to be increasing. Everybody's doing what they can, but it's something that it's going to get addressed. I know that. And just so you know, Ben Miller did call me. He had a meeting with somebody here the other day, I believe.
Who did?
Ben Miller,
Oh,
Public Works.
yeah.
And so you guys gave him go ahead and do some cut a fire line in there, which is music to my ears. We tried to get one last year with Forest Service, and yeah, I think it's going to be quicker just to do it this way. You know,
Yeah,
by
that's
boat.
good. Didn't come
So-
up with that. They already had that in the works a year ago.
Yeah.
And he presented that to us, and it's like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Jump on it, man. That's a sweet little fire break. So we make sure that people are safe and all that's.
And to go one step further, I've already been in contact with the representative for the new Penberthy property. The new
Good.
folks are buying that, and she actually called me, Mandy Henderson,
I'll
called me and said, what can we do to help prevent, you know, fire danger? Like,
Wow.
again, music to my
That
ears.
sounds perfect timing.
So, yeah, so we're gonna continue it on, and when she's up, second week in June for the planning meeting.
Yep.
We're gonna go out and do a walkthrough, and we'll show what we have planned. And it'll just be a continuation of the fire line that's cut in on the other two fires. And, you know, anything that's on their parcel that could, you know, jump the line, we'll have to take care of that. So it'll improve that whole area prior to them ever, you know, doing anything on the parcel, you know, the greater part of it. So,
Yeah, well, that's
and we'll do the best we can to pluck out some brush, let the folks give them, you know, advance notice that we're gonna be in the work.
yeah, exactly.
That's an exciting thing there.
Well, that's a big one.
Overdue.
We were excited about that one. Ben presented that to us.
One thing I would like the council to kind of keep in their mind, it's not obviously it's, you know, anytime you're talking wages, et cetera, that's your biggest cost. But we don't know from year to year how many folks volunteers are gonna stick around, their job changes, they leave. retire, just like with every other department, we have people that retire out through, you know, the stint of 35 years or 2 years, you never know. One of the things I'd like to look into is grant funding for some positions. City of Mount Shasta, City of Weed, they've utilized those in the past. Some include benefits, some don't. A lot of times it's first year is either 100% funded or 75, and then the city would pick up. Yeah, but we pick up a percentage of that at the end of the next year and so on and so forth, where you know, at the last year you're picking up. Just something I want to look into. I'll use some numbers, do some sort of a study on that. But I think it's incumbent on me to do that, to let you know that that's something that I think we need to work with, without saying, well, it's just too much, you can't do it. Let's just try to find something that can work, so that we aren't left with the day that volunteers leave our station, that we're having to rely on other departments, which still, that's gonna be in our queue no matter what. We're gonna have other departments helping us. But for on-site staffing, I think that's down the road is something we need to find. For sure. And the capital projects, like I said, you're well aware of those. The planning grant's going really well. We're getting everything ready, working with Retta and Cynthia and all the city staff. So it's coming along really well. And June 14th, we'll have that, tell that time to submit. But we'll get that in, we'll be in before that. And within that, the design and engineering will be one aspect, if we're successful, site acquisition. So that'll be a huge portion of it there to determine which site's going to be the best based on size, response times from volunteers' place of work or their home to the facility and so on and so forth. So that'll be something we'll have to really, when that time comes, well, yes, soon, then we'll have to really decide, what's the best bang for the buck and collaborate on that. And of course, the golden goose, she lays the egg, and we get the construction of a new facility. That will be outstanding, and we're all hoping for that. So, yeah. But other than that, the fire department's in good shape. We've had a lot of projects at the station that have been positive. The rooms that were done, like I spoke to you earlier about for the sleepers, they've thought that was great. They've taken good care of. The new door we put in, we're yet to get that painted. Once our water tender is here, we'll have a place to switch it out with the one of the other type 1 engines, and we'll have plenty of room for everybody to back them in. So yeah, things are in a good place right now. We just need to keep going and make improvements little by little, which we're doing, but it's going to be a busy season. We're all kind of cringing a little bit, but we're used to it. So happy to answer any questions you have or listen.
Chief, what are your thoughts on fire danger vis-a-vis fireworks being sold and shot off from homes in the city for July 4th?
It's always a concern. We deal with it every year. Mark and I, when Mark was on the volunteer department, it's something. It's a very, very big concern. And I'll probably get with Mark at some point, depending on again that his staffing is going to be called more than we do. I think last year we got called on one incident, and they got called, I think, on hundreds, just because they're the first point of contact a lot of times for hey, somebody's shooting off fireworks in the air. So other than going on foot and having people trying to catch people in the act, that's about the only way you can really curb a lot of that or make examples. And that's hard to do. Again, it's all with personnel. But as far as sales of illegal fireworks, if we find those, we're going to deal with those.
What about sales? I mean, I think Dunsmuir it's not allowed sales of any fireworks.
Yeah, I watched their planning for their city council meeting. They banned it this year.
So I mean, does that make it easier to? Does it reduce fire danger if we're not selling them within the city?
I honestly, my personal opinion only, I don't think it does, because most of the people that obey the law are the ones that buy them from the Safe and Sane. They buy the Safe and Sane fireworks. The ones that you see shot off in the air that go rogue and start fire, those are ones people buy out of state or buy online or whatever they do. They buy them illegally in other states where they are legal. not in California. So they're gonna do that anyway. That's my opinion on it. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
and I thought about it hard because I know we have some people that really depend on that income for the safe and sane. You know, the swim team, I mean, we've got, I think, 3 or 4 now that have applied
For
to the
nonprofits.
state, and I've got, yes, and I've got those applications, so.
But I mean, I don't know if a year is gonna, I mean, this is, I mean, it's gotta be the worst year. I've lived here 36 years. It's gotta be the worst
It is.
in 36 years.
People that have 35 and 40 years in fire service, we just had a chief's meeting Saturday, and that came up, not fireworks, but it's the worst. and
Fire
it's-
danger
Fire danger.
for anything.
It's exact.
And fireworks is just a big one at that time. So,
And 95% or more fire are human caused. So it's gonna take a lot of effort, and a lot of pre-planning this year, which, you know, we're running up into just about a month away. So I appreciate that, because it's concerning very much.
So I don't know.
And it would be hard because we're in a border town. If we ban it or say, we're not having this year, this is gonna go across the border and bring them in.
Right, and I think we
And
can do some public outreach on that, which we will do, with
You know.
some things on Facebook.
I think that's probably our key thing is doing more public
Education.
outreach and education and letting the public know that legal fireworks are not gonna be allowed, period, that we're gonna be watching them closely and whatnot. And like I said, just public awareness, I think, aspect of where they're lighting them off at, no open fields, no, and make sure they're in paved areas or gravel areas or concrete areas and stuff like that. So I think education is gonna be the key thing to that, and start doing that well in advance too, because like you said, this year is gonna be crazy scary, so.
well, I'm just thinking about like down below me at Gold Street where the grass is across, is this high. And I'm thinking about the high school, behind the old Dunlap house. And thinking about if you have a kid going by with a sparkler or whatever, they throw something, it'd be the same with a match or a cigarette. But I mean, they throw it into that. I mean, those places,
Oh, yeah.
they're tinder boxes. The stuff is this tall.
Yeah.
And they're just tinder, and they say, well, it's a, what do they call it? It's a wildlife area or something like that. So, you know,
And I'm not opposed to, I mean, if it came up and that was the wish of the council, you know, as far as banning fireworks period, you know, we'd have to address it, but we all need to be on the same page.
Yeah.
sure.
And make sure that that's something, you know, you gotta take, and you gotta start, you know, well in advance of that holiday, because it's gonna be a big issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Corey, I mean to go.
Oh, no, that's fine, that's fine. Chief, how many volunteers do you have now up to?
Right now, we're at about 20,
Wow.
right at about 20. And yeah, like I said, the org chart you saw with, we changed that a little bit just to give some of the younger folks that were in a position to help us in terms of some command structure there. They're available and they're seasoned, you know, firefighters. So we changed that to 3 lieutenants, and that's helping us a lot. So we have six officers and 14 or 15 volunteers.
Wow, that's great, because I think when I took my seat, you were at 13,
Yeah.
I believe.
And I've gotten some more, we're in a good place there too. I'd rather have more, but I think Monday night we had 21 people at training. That was, of course, 3 of those were the cadets, but that was one of the more, you know, exciting trainings we've done, and everybody was moving, everybody was, you know, doing a good job, which, you know, that's what we shoot for.
And then,
Especially this time of year.
and then when do you anticipate the water tender time in?
We've gotten some paperwork back. They asked for some DMV information for DMV, so we can get the plates and all that started. So it should be the end of June at the latest.
It was
Nice.
looking good last time I went
Yeah,
on.
it was
Oh,
looking
Yeah, we're able to get on it.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
looking good.
Looks good.
Yeah, I think they may be a little delayed, so I think Monday, as soon as I see the tank on there, I know it's close, but there's a lot of things that wiring and so forth that we don't see, that they're not gonna show a video of that or anything, but it's pretty detailed, so
I'm sure.
it's gonna be modular, you know, they put this on, they run the wiring, et cetera, et cetera. But should be definitely by the end of June, if not sooner.
Awesome.
So it'll probably be
Thank
able
you.
to service by August. You could put it in I mean, you'll get it in order to put it in service probably by August, no later.
Oh,
than August.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
No, once here, when the rig comes in, it goes to, they drive it out from Florida. It goes to Golden State in Sacramento, and we'll have radio and some other equipment put on it, you know, minimal stuff. And then from there, they'll drive it up and provide training on it.
Okay.
When that comes, we'll bring it by. So,
Yeah.
No, we could have used it last night, Monday night on our training.
Yeah.
What we're doing is an advanced hoseways up there at the end of Northridge Drive, Northridge Court. And, you know, it was a perfect opportunity to use it if you actually had something going, you know, a fire raging up there. Yeah, it's gonna be busy. It's gonna be, once we get it, it's gonna be going all over the place here in the county. Not planning on sending anyone out of county unless, you know, things change. I'm working on a salary survey for the OES contract, for just in case it becomes a fire where state OES is the one that uses their agreement. Doesn't happen very often, but it's something new for me, so I'm on a little bit of a backside of a learning curve on that. So, but yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year. And I think it all comes down to if people are more careful about have those. And the winds are the other factor that everybody's talking about. That's what's been driving, you know, this last fire season was even more detrimental than the one before, set records, which is not the kind of record you want. You know, like they have one where it's the other way.
Yeah.
But they've already had, like I told you, 1,300 plus fires in the state. So,
That's crazy.
yep. Unfortunately, it's just dry.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Anybody else?
No, that was done.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Chief. That's awesome. Busy.
Where's the tennis ball?
Oh, yeah, I did get my tennis
I
ball.
can't do it. I get 6 months.
I would like, there we have a fire station for 10 million. And we actually have the application planning grant. It's going to be 200 in grant, probably 250,000 in match. So pop going down to the next to the bottom.
Bottom there.
Oh,
Put 250 grant and 250 match. That's about 2.5 million we're working on for that new fire project. So once we get through the planning grant, we go to site acquisition. and, you know, to construction.
so you're saying that the cost of an installation, 10 million? And what did the police station cost?
Police station was all in all about 4.
Yeah.
That was a rehab, correct?
Yes.
That was a
That
rehab.
was rehab.
It was gutted.
Rehabs are usually more expensive per square foot than a new build, but yeah.
No, this wasn't.
Well, I think if I can sort of talk to the 10 million, that's an order of magnitude. None of you were on council at the time where we did the first thing on the police station. But that we were allocated, I think, 1.8 million as a target, you know, and if only you set that price really low, then it will happen that way. And it didn't, it came in at a lot more than that. And we had to go out and get the financing. It's better to shoot for 10 million and find out it's 8 than to shoot for 2 million and find out it's 8 to 10.
Oh, so that's not a cost per square foot or anything like that, the 10 million?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's what the planning grant will help.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you'll know a lot more with the planning grant. So it's not, unfortunately, it's not an unreasonable number. So it's high,
Well, and that
Yeah, it
was-
seems very high to me.
but
It seems about 30%, 20 to 30% high, but that's just,
it could be, but you don't know until.
no.
And also there's a timing issue too. By the time that you actually get it planned, get the funding put together, all that sort of thing, it takes.
Yeah. Cost of materials could
And
triple again.
the materials are still high. I mean, the
I know,
lumber
they
went
keep
up
going
again.
And we have to pay prevailing wage.
Mhm.
We still
Yeah.
have to pay prevailing wage. It's not like private.
Oh, no, as soon as you
Not
say,
like the credit
as soon as you
union.
say government, they give you the little
So you
screwdriver
can-
and tell you to,
Draw 3 more tennis balls out of that thing.
3 more tennis balls.
I think
Three
it's
more. Who, for Steve or who?
Oh.
I'll give them to you, Paul. You get 3 more tennis balls. Each ball's worth 3 million.
Nancy took
Oh.
And that would be
Nancy's
that
doing her
each
best.
ball's worth 3 million. So we're normally a 15 million general, consolidated.
Yeah.
And so the plan of this was to be, and maybe this finance director only kind of fun. was to, accumulate tennis balls to kind of understand kind of the dynamics going on with their budget. So, with that, thanks for humoring me on that and did a great job on that. I did want to point out, we had approval to go out for financing for that new rig. I think my US state contact has left because they haven't replied to a couple of my
Oh, no.
emails.
Oh, no. after all
So,
that.
I'll keep you posted on that. I just need to kind of deviate, but, I do have it in writing what they quoted us for that, but they haven't responded to several emails since June. I think I sent them in February and then I sent them again in March. So, we did get a lot more on the proceeds from the rig that we sold
Mhm.
than we
Yeah,
expected.
a lot more.
So, it may not be that bad. If it does, the deal does fall apart on financing, if we go ahead and pay for it, because we did get, I think it's 430,000 coming in.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I'll hopefully have an
What's
update for you by
430?
the next meeting.
Water
So.
tender.
Oh, the water tank.
430, sold the other way,
430,
got
okay.
115, we only expected about 35,
Yeah,
so.
big difference, which is
Yeah,
nice.
that-
Yeah.
so we may be okay,
One hundred
just
and thirty
paying
thousand
for
for a rig? Really?
Yeah.
430,000 for a water tender?
That's probably low. That's a good deal.
That doesn't include water.
Yeah.
it. That's-
That's expensive.
That's gonna, yeah, that's gonna get going
Well,
up.
one of the unintended consequences of that, when we went through the ISO, only quick, is the ISO evaluator said, I said, well, we're in the process, we're getting rid of one, we're getting another one. This is what it is, the type. And she said, well, that's gonna help. Unintended, it just happened. That the folks that we serve on the Hawkinsville one, we will actually get a Y rating, so that will actually help them.
Oh,
Oh, good.
Also, yeah.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, that was a good plus, they spend money where it gets, where they're not in the city.
right.
That will be something that will possibly help some of those things.
So I'm gonna, if you, I thought maybe I could jump into, administration budget real fast. And then just- Public works, we have water, we have sewer, parks.
You want to tell Mark, you're thinking about taking a break because there's a tray of Casaramos up there, so.
Good.
I mean, we do have a microwave if you want to heat it back up.
Oh, that's
Or
right.
if you'd
Thanks
like
for
to shift
Corey.
order, let me know.
Oh, is it working?
Okay, so finance and administration really, our biggest challenge, of course, is staffing, as many of the other departments are. And so we're looking, as we spoke to the HR coordinator, fiscal compliance manager, and we have a vacancy in fiscal and admin tech. On that, so primarily staffing is our budget initiatives. We have a lot of projects we'd like to deliver. Big cost projects, but we'll outline those kind of in the budget, but one of the things on the fiscal compliance is get a full inventory of the grants with the start date, end date, the invoicing, the milestones and deadlines, so that we're and everybody's looking at the same dates on that. And then also researching grants for ARPA compliance, possibly some fire safety grants on that to help help the compliance, because again, these falls are multiplying. And this is why we need that augmentation of staff. And this is a grant funded contract position that we're talking about that. We're able to interview applicants for the HR coordinator analyst position, and so be updating you on that in the future. The HR we're want to assist with the executive recruitment any way we can, as provide staff assistance on that, and for the executive recruitment succeed vendor and police chief, and we'll be bringing a staff report on that. And assisting in hiring for the public safety vacancies, we know that's critical. With the other positions, we do have some good news on interviews have happened on the mechanics. We have an offer out for a wastewater treatment plant, license 3 operator. There's still some maintenance worker positions open. We have a whole initiative with training. We really need to step up our training to the next level on internal policies, and as well as I think, we're, it's always good to go over those and maybe increase that training visibility and platform with that. We need to, we would like to do, talk to the committee on this, or I caught it individually after the meeting was, we have in our MOU to do.
BLT sound okay for dinner?
Could you silence them, please? Thank you. I'm sorry.
So the compensation study, and that we are looking, we need to do that. We worked with the unit over the summer. We found 2 relevant compensation study reports, but they are not going to, we found 2 recent ones. However, we feel we, in order to satisfy that, need to just move forward to have city only study. And I'll go into that more detail later. Why it's important to have that for success.
I thought we, pardon me,
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor. I thought we had done that. I thought we did the,
Classification.
that was classification, that
Right.
wasn't compensation.
Right.
Right, we were gonna do a joint informal effort, and we have provided the city of Mount Shasta that included the city of Yreka, and we provided them the city of Rio Dale that included the city of Yreka. However, I think to get to a true picture of the city of Yreka with all the existing positions, that it's important to go ahead and do that. So,
How much is that gonna cost?
June, I would just have to start that RFQ and
It'll be expensive.
I'll find out what Rio Dale can do. I can find out that. That was completed September of 2020. And Mount Shasta's was completed in 2019. So they were relevant recent studies. Okay, and starting so one thing I'd like to work with SCORE is a long-term premium and risk, seeing what we can do to look at how we can mitigate risk better. We have been working with TFK and all like that, but our experience rate still remains higher than I'm comfortable with. So would like to maybe put more emphasis on that, see if we can't control that in working comp rates and incidences. For a budget, try to get this to you as quickly as possible. We're probably already looking at a July budget adoption, and there's just been a lot of unplanned things that have come up. I'll try to get back on track and get this to you. Yeah.
So we won't have a budget by the end of our fiscal year,
We'll
which is
probably-
the end of June, right?
That would be ready for June 15th, 2 weeks from now. It'll probably be July. And I apologize, but I'm pedaling as best I can right now, so.
Yeah,
I
you got a lot on
appreciate your
your plate.
understanding. Software testing will be software testing this year. Springbrook's migrating this product to Cirrus. We'll also be focusing this year on recovery on cost collections and utility billing. And then for information technology, we're due for our IT security assessment this year audit. And also, along with PD, I want to review our hardware and peripherals for rotation and replacement life. And then also for ITs, collaborate with the city clerk on their online implementation of clerk software. And my long-term future goal is a lot of the cities are now developing their budgets in kind of a magazine style format, online format that looks really nice. I know EDC does a lot of their marketing stuff in that and online magazine format. So with that, that's kind of the quick rundown on budget stuff. So you want to break or you want to go right into public works?
What do you guys want to do? Want to hang tight and get through it and be done?
Is Public Works the last one?
It is. It's a big one. It's like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be about double this
I
cost.
said, let's go for it.
I'd say let's go
Yeah.
for it.
All right. Matt, you're on.
Oh, boy.
So I have only 12 pages of notes.
Right. We're gonna roll in slowly with the fleet. It's typically one of the simpler. I say simpler because public works budget. It's really simple, but so I want to start with staffing. Tim Shaw announced his retirement months and months ago. Along with HR, we together with the positions. We just recently had interviews. I walked out of this room the other day saying that was the best panel of applicants I've ever sat. We had strong showing from 5 applicants, which is unheard of here where it works for positions such as this. I didn't think we would get anybody when we first flew it. So due to some changes around the state and the country, we had quite a few folks apply for it. So for a US, Retta, what the orange was about on our
Oh, yeah.
board chart.
The color, yeah.
Arthur, can you pull the public works board chart back up for me? So there we have a senior mechanic vacant. If you recall, we flew these positions as a senior mechanic and a mechanic/senior, so we'd get everybody that was out there. If there was just a mechanic that didn't think they were strong enough to become a senior, we wanted them to apply for anything. We were digging to get anybody to apply. We had, like I say, a very strong field of applicants. As of right now, we're looking at the top 2, which are far and away senior mechanics, which is good because we restructured fleet in such a manner for this go around that it does not include a manager. So with Tim Shaw's retirement, the fleet manager position is not to be filled. It will fall upon underneath public works, as it always has, but as Jerry can attest to, the chief can attest to, Tim Shaw has helped us run our departments, our divisions. We couldn't have done it without Tim.
That includes the fire department too.
Right, so we will need to take a look at it in the future, but it's not in the cards right now to fill that position. So having some senior mechanics in there, working directly, reporting to Tyler and working directly for Ben under myself, we're gonna make it work. I think that Ben and I can work with the chiefs well enough to see those horizon issues of we need to buy this truck and change it for that and flop it around until everybody gets their vehicles like Tim. I've done with Tim for the last 10 so years. So there is that restructure there. And then we also lost our admin down there when Elaine retired this past year, and that slack was taken up by Retta's staff, which is another drain on Retta's staff. So that position, we're looking at that filled up too. And that admin position actually is the one that we just recently flew for the senior fiscal and admin tech. I meant to take a look today to see how many, but we did have some applicants coming through the computer system that we ran that through from so the tasks from the admin for the director position and the public works position is going to cover all of them. And it's I've talked with Rob. I'll talk to that. Rob is currently the water services manager, right? In fact, he's going to lateral up over to the construction field technicians more than likely. And then having that internally filled, the water services manager filled. So the new manager who's internal won't have any admin help, basically. So, and same goes with the wastewater. When Mike announces retired, we have an admin need in wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant, fleet division, and my own admin needs up here at City Hall. So fleet is full cost recovery model based on the vehicle maintenance equivalents. We talked about this years ago, unless you're all over here. We call them VEUs. And then the fuel is a chargeback on usage. So back years ago, some of you may recall that a lot of these vehicles and mechanical issues and all that were just purely covered in a a different style of budget. Now it's just charged back, so we're tightly tracking it. So Steve and Rep spearheaded years ago. Horizon issues in fleet, we're looking at cross training. The thing with Tim retiring, we had Tim, who's the senior mechanic / manager, and Matt Bowles, and Matt rose to a senior mechanic and then applied for the wastewater OIT position next door. So we were down to Tim. We're down to Tim right now. He's the only employee in the fleet department. So we're really charging hard and hoping we can get these senior mechanics filled up. So there's some training that we're not going to be able to, not gonna really have the time for. I think Tim's leaving around September-ish. But there'll be enough time for him to get the nuts and bolts, so to speak, of it under their belt, and then myself and Ben, the chiefs, can fill in mechanics on our true needs. The capital outlay fleet is departmental vehicles. We're constantly looking at the life cycle scheduling. And I just spoke to a minute ago, to where when the water division buys a truck, drives to Fall Creek every day, we like them to drive that for 4 or 5 years. And then we flip it back in and say the parks, we buy it. So it'll be that, it's up to that year, and then the parks is in that for procuring that used truck, and then we run them until they're dead in an auction. And that's been changing over the years too. We're starting to see, as you just spoke to, it's a fire truck that was leaving. We actually got some money out of an auction item. Just typically just, we walk out, we put it online, we go, God, I hope it all sells. You know, just want it all out of here, get it off the yard. We're starting to see actually some returns on auction. Yeah, the police interceptors, the crew trucks, we've got CARB, air resources board compliance. There's a massive number of our old equipment that the state they put into tiers, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 on, and when you hit a certain tier, you have to pull it out of service, and then we have to auction it to someone out of state because it can't be used in California anymore. Wow. So that's really been driving a need for backhoes, the loader, patch truck for the asphalt truck. You know, you see it go by on the street and it looks shiny and new. It's a mid-90s model and it's almost out of car already. And then there was a water truck in there that we use a lot. We've been debating, is it really needed? We do use it every time we saw cut asphalt in the streets. We use it for weed abatement because we have to go water it down before we drive the mowers around our parcels that are over an acre. We have to mow the fire breaks on. So we use the living Jesus out of it. And we've tried to look through the regulations and find a loophole on, put some fire stickers on the side. And so we do really need it. And we'll be talking further about that. I guess I'm going to drop in the way I have in file. An operating budget for wastewater. I kind of spoke to it. We hired the new wastewater treatment plant manager internally. We have the OIT. Matt should be up within the year to become a grade 1 operator. I'll jump out of OIT status after he gets his hours. And it's another test and some more hours to get to grade 2 operator. So we're doing okay, but we're still shy. With Mike leaving, that puts Mitch Shinar, who's the wastewater treatment plant manager. I call it in training right now because we thankfully to the policy that you all passed months ago, we were able to bring Mitch up to that level. Mike's there, he's training them to everything he knows. So the day that Mike walks out the door, Mitch has got it nailed. But that still leaves us Mitch as a manager and IT, so hopefully we get we have a very good prospect that was a licensed grade 3 operator who will serve in water treatment. That came up and applied for the position. And we handed him an offer letter, and I think right now we're kind of looking at if we can find a place to rent, we're going to get him. And if not, the housing issue causes some problems. But that's the last I heard there.
There's houses out there right now.
We had him come up. I asked HR, asked her name, find a way to get him up here and get him a plant tour. Get that, and so you got to see that. Check out the Scott Valley, and check out the Shasta Valley. Don't get hung up looking for a rental in town right here in Yreka, but go out and see some sites and that kind of thing. So we're doing more and more of that with our vacancies. just trying to show them the perks of come on up to 60 if they're not already local. So there's a lot of budget stuff, and I'm going to go through that now. Retta, do you want me to get into numbers and wastewater, or what do you think? Dan?
There's about 100,000 in M&O. When I say M&O, maintenance and operations, that we usually budget. It's in the rate study, so it's built in our rates for things. So Mike, as thorough as he is, always itemizes it out for us. But if you just think about 100,000 in M&O maintenance, and even
That's
at
the treatment side. I'll
treatment,
just say the plant. just to clarify.
the plant, thank you, like, I love this word, tertiary treatment filter. Dissolved air flotation thickeners, and it's like, until I see them, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, maybe we need to take it to her.
I do need
Show
to
you
know,
dissolved
I
air
do like
flotation
your
thickener.
great fresh down there. That's what it looks like
Debbie
to
and I
me.
took a tour, how long ago?
Yeah.
6 years ago.
Yeah. But that's not really.
No.
That's what it looks like.
You ruined it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did decrease the FTEs in 21-22, but most likely we're gonna need to bump that back up to these capital projects, date times, start times that are coming. Got a lot, I think it's going on with it, just from a collection size.
And when he says decrease, it's not manpower, it's just that percentage allocated.
So there's been a lot going on there in the wastewater treatment and distribution and collection sides, tracking drone projects, leveraging our cartograph, the GIS system, the asset management system we've been building, which is assisting us in budgeting in the future budget projections. We've got the sewer mains, we're throwing a CCTV robot down with the watch agreement that we have with them standing. We're doing really great there. We're in a really good spot. We'll get some more of that done here in about a month. And then that construction tech and wastewater evaluator position that I spoke to a little bit, that's really eyes on the ground for all of these upcoming projects. We've got this tsunami hitting us right now over the course of the next 5 years. We've talked about the Highway 3 water, sewer, those are massive. The Burgess sewer is massive. We've got the East Line's water main and filter upgrades is massive. It's a lot to keep eyes on the ground. And while we do have construction observers that come up from the design engineers, to have one of us on the ground, as we've done it in the past, we pulled Bob King out of retirement. He was in Ben's position when he retired. And we had a large distribution mains, transmission mains project come through and go up center intersection and up Minor and turn a corner and go all the way up North Street. We brought Bob back out of retirement to be the city's boots on the ground, take notes, point of contact. State Route 3, I mentioned, we're looking at I think I've explained this one to death to you all. The way that they're going to do the sections of Highway 3 down through town. They're not just going to come through and tear the whole thing out. Do it 6 or 7 chunks to completion and then move to the next one, starting on both ends and flopping. But that's the $6 million number from the USDA. Finalizing bids and letter of conditions, legals reviewing a number of agreements on that one. I think he and I mentioned to you there's 10 known agreements that need to get reviewed and stuff, and I think I found another one this morning and shut it off. So then we've got the STIP. The STIP is this transportation funding for South Oregon. We're looking at the water and wastewater needs underneath South Oregon. So from Finwalls, just instead of streets, from Finwalls Automotive on down to NorCal, replacing that horrible chunk of South Oregon. So we're taking a look now at what we really need to do underground, which is in really good nick. So
Yreka motors is really bad.
That whole section is all alligator.
Oh, it's horribly alligator. I think the last time I looked at it on our pavement management that rates it from 0 to 100, meaning an A.
At a
Was it
minus.
11?
11. I was gonna say
11.
minus.
It might be a 9 now.
I was gonna say.
I kind of discouraged, didn't want to look back to the program.
Yes, Paul.
Better than that.
How far down are we? Because Steve's talked about that being an old like lumber mill, how far down are we gonna have to go dig down in order to,
We have,
to secure that ground? We have to go down
So-
12 or 15 feet?
I want to say 2 years ago, Paul, we brought to council an allocation, and we sent a geotech survey out there and went down and dug test holes, set piezometers to measure the groundwater. And then they did some radar mapping, some penetrative ground radar. And he basically brought back a colored map to me that showed me the limits of the original mill pond. And this project right behind Yreka Motors goes right through the mill pond.
Yep.
So when they shuttered the mill and closed it, they pushed it full of the miners' rocks that were there before the mill was.
Mhm.
They just shoved the pond full of rock and then pushed 3 feet of sawdust over it, not that much dirt. So we're gonna end up, if Telltale Signs, when they dug the foundation for, they were designing the foundation for Yreka Motors, and I called the engineer, I said, you guys had better do some test wells, so dig some pits. And there was areas beneath that foundation that went 12 feet.
Yeah.
So they had to lift, engineered fill 12 feet to put that building down on a parked car. So we're gonna be deep.
Yep.
But that's in the final design of that project. So yeah, we're looking at about 300,000 in the water and sewer upgrades that may need to happen there. We've got some oddities happening in the bridge, right before the end down there. So there's, but we think on the public works side of things, 300K for water and sewer upgrades is a pretty small number. It's not a small number at all, I understand that, but for this project being that long, that many linear feet, we're just gonna, a little bit of sewer upgrades and we'll be good for the next 50 to 100 years. I already spoke to Riverwatch. That's 100 to 125,000 mobilization for this summer work that they're gonna do. Will get us just about that close to being done with the camera work that we needed to do to be done with Riverwatch. Yeah, we have contract signed Burgess Street wastewater collection system improvements. That whole neighborhood down in Burgess is getting torn up and replaced with sewer. That's $5.5 million. And then the contract that'll be done in 22. Highway 3 on the outliers is, as I think I've explained, the work that was performed on Highway 3 from the day they said this is what we want to do to the last few meetings we've had about it. It's a completely different conversation than I thought we would end up in. Yes, we're going to do the water and the sewer projects that we discussed. We have those in the rate studies. They're going to kick us back about $1.3 million for the conflicts north of the road line. That they finally came around to the fact that, yeah, we're there. Those are us. We will pay you back for those. So that's all good news. And our Paul from Pace believes that current number of 1.3 in the conflicts is going to go up. We'll get more from the state that
Good.
our projections stand right now.
Hmm.
But it's a massive project out there. You're all well aware of that. I feel like I've talked it to death in the last 2 or 3 years. There, where the money, the outlying money in wastewater collection lines is south of Oberlin. There's just a few things that they're gonna do that we're on the hook for, a few things we're gonna do, and then everything south of Moonlight is us. So we're looking at about $150,000 just for the conflicts from the Moonlight intersection of the light south down to Walmart. It's in good nick and it's new. We put it into, some of it went in the late 80s and 90s. It's almost meets today's code. So then jump into the capital projects. There's no grants in the 22, 22, 23. The municipal service center yard, we talked about chain link fencing, concertina wire on the top, or barbed wire. That quote came in. It's reasonable at 69,400. And that tightens down not only the security on the yard, but it also will fence off the north well.
Oh, good.
So it's use some water funds on that too.
Oh,
Instead of
good.
just general fund stuff.
Oh, good.
So we're tightening down security at the yard, so it's an even split to distribute along everything we do at the service center. I call it the yard sometimes, service center. So it's not a direct general fund hit. Water and wastewater need to kick in on that. There's dump trucks that need to be replaced. The loader we've had in the budget since the first time the budget was ever handed to me. Carbon Clancy's telling us it's a tier 0, get rid of it, don't run it, kind of deal. Master plan stuff coming, so. And then a backhoe. So there's the asphalt patch truck, the loader, the asphalt patch truck, and the backhoe, and those percentages of cost can be split all over everything they do. Like when we utilize the backhoe, we don't just purchase it with water funds, it only uses it in water. So we split the cost. So we would go 33% streets, 33% water, 33% sewer. And that's how we fund the purchase of large pieces of equipment that are utilized in that manner. Because if you think about it, most of the patches that we have to do are caused by water line repairs. It's not a streets job. We're digging up the street, but we're getting down to a water repair. So when we bring it back up, we pave it, bring it back up and pave it with water money.
Right.
Same thing with the allocations on how we buy equipment. If it's a sewer, we do it with a sewer. And then there is the general fund streets, so we're honest about all. And then there was some quotes coming in that Ben had permissions to, council permissions to go ahead and move on purchasing of some ergonomically helpful asphalt machines to break it down. And he's just not liking the quotes that he's getting right now because everything went nuts. So supply chain went crazy. What he thought he could get for 14,000 is now 30,000. So he hasn't purchased it. He won't be able to get it by that one piece. I know he's not going to be able to get by the fiscal flip because we have to get all the accounting done. We need to get our purchasing done so Retta and her team can clean it all up.
Right.
So we're just, it got too tight at the very end.
So I just did a quick count and you just drew 5 more tennis balls for the,
Only 5 million.
let's
No,
see.
15 million. 3 million.
Yeah, you're right, John, 4 million, 4 tennis balls. 4 tennis balls.
So you've got boxer tennis ball.
Do I throw them at
So
Matt?
that's the combination of the USDA project at 6 million and First Street, USDA at 6.5 million for the sewer and the Purchase Street at 5.5 million. And then the little peripheral projects, 300,000 seems so small.
That's a part,
That's their mean assessment. So we're down to balls and reports.
You want to take Road and Street grants?
No, you're right. I just, what I have is I have collected notes here that are going to come in this. I wish I had had time to share all of them with y'all, but they'll come in a nice clean format.
Snow Streets, Road and Streets, summer 2021. We're prepping the bid docs, begin construction July 1. Upper and lower Greenhorn roads and parking lot. Wastewater treatment plant entry drive and around all the clarifier bases, narrator bases. And chip sealing Overland 2 Comstock. So everything that we prepped last year with the clear truck, we're gonna be chipping over that. And then sharps, we'll be chipping that to Fairland. So it's quite a bit of chip. We like to say we're calling it making the streets black. We're gonna make quite a few streets black. And get those the chips and the singles and the doubles and get them oiled up. While it's not asphalt, it's not 1/2 inch black asphalt. We're getting huge gains in my street saver program that shows us. I think I should have brought it tonight, an infographic with staff last week. Should have brought that, but when we went for Measure C, trying to just enough money to hold us where we were, we had a failing grade in the class that we were in, looking at all of our neighbors, everyone else in the county. We were failing, but we were in the middle of the class. Everyone was pretty much failing except for Fortune. They had a huge state funded project and they're small. So we actually didn't just hold where we're at with Measure C, we're gaining points. And it's not huge points, but we're gaining points, which when I saw that come through the monthlies, I was very happy. And then along with that, with the Measure C and then the RMRA, which is the road maintenance and rehabilitation money, the HUDA, governor's revising on that, and then the gas tax revenue dropped because we weren't dry, because we all were staying away from COVID, right? So there were some revisions there. Resurfacing happening through planned infrastructure projects and the restructure of employee allocations to increase our efforts in street sweeping in parks. So we really took a hard dive, and it was very difficult for Ben to swallow, but we reallocated all of the employees. Pulled out their allocation. It's going to be happening because of Highway 3. So even we went as deep as even going for the parks. Maintenance worker in parks, reallocated that position to 75% parks, and then spread the other 25% of that person's time through water and sewer and streets. So we just dug as deep as we could and said, okay, what are we not going to do this year? Yeah, we're not going to. Probably won't be doing as much in the parks because of the drought. So we can probably afford, not to use names, but we can probably afford 25% of Andy's time because we're going to be shutting down water and things of that nature. So I just want you to understand that we did take a very deep dive. Gave Ben heartburn and gray hair. I think he's thinning now.
He can't
He's
stand
too
it.
young for that, but it's happening.
I have a
Joe has
question. So I just went by recently by Mine Street Park, and it's terrible. So are we going to be looking at more weeds and high grass, which is also a fire danger? You know, what's going on? If you're cutting time, and we didn't hardly have enough time in the parks, and yet you're cutting time, what's it gonna do to our
Discoveries
parks?
are-
We
Because
can-
we'll hear about it first thing. from
This
our
discovery-
I
constituents.
will be preparing
Yeah, already.
a relations push as I have for the last since 2017. It seems like every year I've pushed out into the paper and to the Facebook and everything else saying, you know, don't expect green, lush grass this year. Because we really don't know what's going to happen. with drought.
Yeah, but it can't
So,
be too high.
It can't be
What
too
we have
high,
now
yeah.
is high weeds.
right.
Or dead grass.
And dead
Discovery's dead, about 70% of it's dead.
Is it?
It's just yellow.
Yeah, I'm worried
Typically, with
about
the way
that.
the parks happen, and I can speak from experience, that person is that we get spring rains. And so typically, we let the spring rains bring in all that natural nitrogen, and the lawns spike, and a beautiful all spring, and that holds in until about this time when we really start cranking our water allocation onto the acres of parks that we irrigate, which is 42 acres. There's 42 acres of maintained, cut, edged, weed-eated lawn with sprinkler lines underneath them. I don't know the number of sprinkler heads, but that would be a good point to make too. And right now we've got water turned on, but we have to catch up to Mother Nature because she didn't give us as much this year. We didn't get all the free nitrogen out of the rain. So, and without getting into the weeds on this one, there's state mandates about how much water you can legally place upon a crop or a lawn. And they call it the maximum applied water allowance. And that roughly comes out to about 36 inches. Oh, there's that infographic. About 36 inches a year, which isn't all that much water when you look at 42 acres of maintained lawn and you want to keep it green as green for as long as you can to the budget allowed. So it's not only a monetary budget, it's a water budget. And it's a state mandate that we don't put more than that. So we have every park is cranked down to the math, to the numbers that zone 4 at Upper Greenhorn can only run for 17 minutes twice or 3 times a day or 3 times a week. Or else, you know, when you add it all up with the rest of the timers there, we're blowing the water budget, the MEWA numbers of that park. So we hold it at, I have the parks holding at 80% of the allowable water that we can put on, because I like the guy that's working the parks to be able to go out there and go, that's dry. Now it's wet. And if we run it at 100% and just let the timers run overnight, we don't have that little bit of leeway. So yes, they're not gonna be the lush, beautiful, but we're gonna do the best we can as budgets allow. And really, it comes down to that.
And
May
keeping
one
it
number.
fire safe. I mean, that's
Right.
my point. Yes, we want it to be beautiful, but we also want to make sure that the weeds are cut down and it's maintained. And is this
Right.
person, he's gone.
We-
Okay, the person that was up there, is that person going to be able to do it with 25% less of their time?
We also are currently working with personnel preference
Mm,
to get the additional parks seasonal in there, because we don't have them yet. Again, it's an odd year, right? It's supposed to be green right now. The parks guy's supposed to be running around, oh my gosh, trying to get caught up on cutting everything because Mother Nature made it grow more than he wanted to. And we don't typically get our park seasonals until school lets out. So it's, yeah,
Few
it's
weeks
just, it's
after.
ahead of us by, I don't
okay.
know, 3 weeks,
2 weeks, I'd say, yeah.
4 weeks.
Mid-June?
We did, sorry, like I said, and we did talk about the weeds in front of, when we met at the skateboard park, because they're all over in front of the skateboard park and growing up, but we did talk about hopefully the weeds get cut before July, because I don't think the new equipment's coming until July, right?
I'll need to check with Ben. I know
Yeah,
I ordered it.
it was
I'm not
July.
sure on delivery time.
But hopefully the weeds get cut before that, because they're growing up. I had like the Jones saw in front of the skateboard park, they're
Oh, it's awful.
like that tall now.
Yeah.
They've grown a lot since we were there.
Right, and
Yeah.
that type of work is typically handled by our seasonals that come in during summer after school. It used to be after high school got out, but then there were some things that
So
happened.
it's-
We don't hire high
yeah.
schoolers anymore.
So it's way
wait
ahead.
Until the college.
The growth,
kids
yeah.
get out.
Okay,
So we'll be on it soon.
I think Debbie had a question, sorry. I interrupted.
Yes,
Okay, is there any way that we can approach the state authorities regarding our water allotment, because our water comes from Fall Creek out of state?
it's
So-
it's a solid point. Rob and I have stood on that. We talked about it before about, is there any way, because our waters don't drain down and hit Sacramento and then further down to the viaduct and they don't feed the issue. We've had that discussion, but I have yet to see any kind of loophole within a mandate from the governor of California that says you should go to every other day watering. And remember 17, when it came down the first time, the
We
water
tried that,
efficiency, and we had to go come up with water efficiency ordinances and all that so it was citable offenses and
Right.
and then, as the last time I looked, it could have changed. It's been a week. It was still headed into voluntary watering days.
Right.
And I think we probably still have that up in our own conditions, so it's voluntary, but I know it doesn't make a lot of,
Doesn't make sense.
not a lot of logic there coming out of Sacramento.
Oh, wait, let me be surprised. Okay, the other question I had, if you don't mind, people's, on the Measure C funding, is 100% of that going to the roads? Because what I would like to see is a portion of that used for other public safety projects, meaning fire mitigation along the creek, these areas that we have fallen behind on with the city property on weed abatement. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm pretty uncomfortable sending out a
Mhm.
letter of compliance to our
We can't-
community
we can't
when
do
we're
that.
not complying.
Mhm.
So the quick answer is no. Retta can explain it better than I can on that end, but Measure C was never designed to go completely with streets. It was for public safety. It was,
Which fire mitigation would be included under that general term.
could be-
As well as police.
Mhm.
Yes,
Right.
Police, fire.
At the time that
and
we
roads.
rolled out Measure C to the public and explained why we needed it, I explained that we were out of money scraping the barrel for streets funding. And the police came along and explained that Brian Bowles was right there with me, explaining that he didn't have any money for cops. and all that. So
And with the
it's
fire
definitely
department.
not 100% earmarked to streets, no.
I did a lot of that talking too,
Mhm.
and I did explain the
Yes.
same thing. Like, you got a burglar in your backyard, you wanna make sure that we have a deputy, if there's fire, you wanna be able to serve all three of those, and you're right.
right,
They all
but I was
connect
just
to the
double
west.
checking on how much is going to the roads and if it's based on priority of need kind of thing. And at this point, I think our number one concern is fire.
Fire.
Right, we're
Fire.
backing up the streets work this year with the RMRA funding and the funding, so it's not all. The work we're this year in the streets. The chip seal is not one of them. It's not funded entirely by.
Well, the way
And
I,
you see, we have these other pots of money that come in that we ask you to sign and say, hey, can we give you 120 grand? Can we give you 96 grand? Those letters that come through from the state, we're using those and Measure C to augment. So we did that, which was the entire intent of Measure C, was to augment.
right. And I understood from one of the conversations with Ben that the county isn't able to partner as much as they have previously. So are we using them at all this season?
No, we do not have an active project scheduled with the county. This is-
Really?
We'll be putting them out to bid.
They were on, I think.
Yeah. It's gonna
Oh,
cost
that
more
would
money,
be More money, yeah.
They're
Wow.
experiencing staffing issues similar. to
big
us.
time.
Big time.
There's a lot happening there.
Yes,
I don't
Joe?
know it all, so.
Thank you. I think that you addressed this, but I'm just concerned. I wonder if anybody else has heard. So they're predicting this to be the biggest fire risk and the biggest drought that we've had, I know, as Jerry said, in 40 years. So have any of you heard anything about the state coming down and rationing water like they did to us in 2017? Remember when we had to go to 2 days a week, depending on your address, it was, alternate days, even days or odd days, but it was only twice a week, I think, and
Right.
maybe on
You talking about
Saturday.
statewide water rationing?
It was statewide, yes.
Yeah.
We were mandated.
Right.
We got a letter from the state that said you will do this or we will fine you.
Yeah, I have not heard of anybody
I
saying that's gonna
haven't-
happen.
Seen
And
it
I
yet.
haven't, and I'm really surprised. Because we already are having water shortages. Not us, but the
I
state.
haven't seen that yet, but I would not be surprised.
Yeah,
at all
well,
if I saw it
That's what
tomorrow.
I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I think none of us would be surprised. There are some interesting politics that are going on down in Sacramento that may be the cause of why it hasn't happened. And remember, we have a different governor then. That's part of it.
That's
We
true.
have a different governor than what we had back then. So
Anyway, that's a concern.
Oh, major concern, yeah. You know, we brought this up before too, is what doing wells and stuff. Is there any chance
Oh.
I know we talked about it up in Greenhorn. I know plumbing would probably be the major issue, but I know that we have a lot of wells that we can tap into. Would that be any relief? And does that fall into how does that fall in the criteria of the state guidelines if we did get into a water situation like that? Can we use our wells to a certain extent? So not regulated yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not regulated yet.
Yeah, that's a key word.
But there are still municipal water regulations that are pulled true. So it's my belief that if we were to go find 4 or 5 good, solid producing wells and we fed it into our city system.
Well, I'm just talking not necessarily the city system, I'm talking to our park systems. That's what I'm talking, our park system, not the city system necessarily would, and that's where the plumbing would be a major issue. I know, I realize that, but that would be, I see that as being a huge relief. I know for Greenhorn, we have a big well up above there.
and maybe you just said this, is that I think that the regulations that provide for the water diet that Matt was just talking about apply regardless of,
Oh,
how much you're watering on your park.
so that's the 36 inches a year.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I went ahead, someone had his hand up.
I'm
Oh, sorry, Paul.
No, I was gonna say, it doesn't apply to like our soccer field up there. It does not apply to Little League
I
field.
wouldn't think it would.
No, it doesn't apply to a pool if we build one. If we have a historical site like Greenhorn Park or Discovery Park that was declared a historical site, it would not apply there, provided that we had vegetation that was, and I don't know that grass would be considered vegetation of the era.
Indigenous.
Yeah, so, but like our soccer field, it does not apply. No playing field that has to have real turf does MAWA apply to.
Well,
Okay.
I like the sound of that, so you can't drive that up.
Well, you've also-
Because it's built on top of rock, but.
You've also got a part of softball field. I mean, it's not all of Minor Street Park, but you got a part of the softball field out there, so
Yeah.
it just depends. It also does not apply to recycled water, but again, like Irvine, all of everything, the freeways, the parks, everything is recycled water in Irvine. Matter of fact, their recycled water you can drink. It's purer than the water when it comes out of the sewage. It's
Believe it.
purer than it is when.
They're
when it
actually
comes from
drinking
their
water.
source, yeah. But
That's
but it
scary.
did cost, Irvine started back in 1969. They start putting that in when the family started to develop it, you know, and it doesn't apply like to farmland.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was just
Interesting.
curious.
So then, storm drainage plan, storm drainage, in the planning stages, obviously you recall that we're working with NCE on the master plan to get that going. That was step one of the multi-layered plan we spoke to a few months ago, headed towards a utility in stormwater, so it's not a direct general fund hit. NCE is cranking on that. Letter to the state of California.
Excuse me.
We sent a letter to the state of California last week before, last week, asking for a complete waiver from MS4 regulation.
What?
The MS4
Oh,
regulation,
MS4.
the stormwater phase 2, small, which is the regulatory arm of the state water board that we're a permittee of. I talk about it quite a bit. When a developer comes in and wants to build any kind of building, they have to put a bioswale in, they have to capture the rainwater, make sure it recharges the aquifer. They have to put in specific landscaping items. They have to have engineering done. It's a drain. It's a complete drain on not only the big developers, but it hurts me to see the local developers go through it. There is a sentence, a section of permit that we dug up that allows for asking of a waiver. I ran it by Dawn. Dawn said that's a great idea. I ran it by Paul. Paul said that's a great idea. Kind of borrowed a lot of the language from some other cities that have recently gone for it. One didn't quite make it yet, but I just want you to understand it would be huge. I'm not getting my hopes up because it's regulatory agencies, it's the state water boards, it's all for the protection and tied directly back to the Clean Water Act, which I'm 100% a fan of. I want water creek and rainwater creek to flow freely and be beautiful and have salmon in them. But I personally think that the majority of the MS4 phase 2 permit is extreme for the city of Yreka and our local developers.
So how would that waiver, I mean, how does that work? Why would there be a waiver? I guess can you explain any of that?
When they designed the waiver, and they told us, when they designed the initial permit, they explained to the city that because your waters are tributary to the Shasta River, and the Shasta River has what they call TMDLs, the total maximum daily loads, dissolved oxygen and temperature. The Shasta River is kind of nasty because of dissolved oxygen level and temperature. But we have multiple reports on the public works side that say the waters of Yreka Creek are beneficial to the waters of the Shasta. And so as we crafted this letter, I had Arthur dig up. I said, I've seen it somewhere, buddy. Find it for me. Please be my hero. And he found it. And it's actually stated in a water board staff memo that the waters of Yreka Creek are beneficial to the Shasta.
Nice.
And so we stuck that in a letter. So like I say, I'm not all that optimistic about it because it's heavy state regulations, but that's the biggest news on the stormwater front right now.
Good.
We still need the utility because we still need to go jet with the big truck and clean out our culverts so your houses don't flood and they get a gully washer. We used to get gully washers when the rain would come in and hit that last bit of snow up there and just flood downtown. We still need that funding, and Red and I talked this one to death internally, that drain of just maintaining the stormwater because there is no funding for it. That's the reason for the master plan. That's the reason that we asked you for the money to go to NCE and have Jason Drew come up with a plan. Let's follow the plan, get those check boxes ticked, and try to find a way to fund that. So if this waiver goes through, it could lessen the amount of work required, which would lessen the amount of rate study on the stormwater side as a utility. So I'm excited. I just don't want to be overly excited. I fully expect a denial letter. The good news on that one is if they don't respond with a set time, we get a free waiver.
Yeah.
So it's like, why didn't I do this last March?
Debbie has a question.
Yes.
What, if I remember correctly, there was a time limit on this, like 10 years to comply with everything. Is that correct?
No, yes, there is a time limit, but it wasn't 10 years. You
What
might be
was it?
thinking of the River Watch compliance, which was about 10 years on the sewer side that was getting to the water,
Okay.
which was the River Watch agreement.
Okay.
CCTV, we're almost done with the compliance on that. The MS4 permit is rewritten every 5 years.
Okay.
They're a year and a half late right now. We don't know what big, hairy, scary things are in the new permit. But I'll
The
bet you it's
state's
gonna
a
be-
year and a half
Yeah.
late on getting the requirement, the new.
Yeah, we're running on the original 5-year permit, and they had, I have to do an annual report for compliance every year and say we did this much public outreach. We had this many developers put BMPs on their designs and developments. And all the meetings that I have, when I sit down with a local developer or anybody that comes in, and I mean, there's a certain point where you want to build a house, you have to come in and talk to Matt, and Matt has to put your numbers in on square footage on your property and say, well, you're just enough to put that rainwater back in the ground. So that compliance changes every 5 years. We were in our first 5-year permit. It just hit when I took on the director position. And Jeanette and I just battled for compliancy, and Arthur and Cindy and I have continued to battle for compliancy. And so that's why we chose to go for the waiver. And it comes back to, there is a little section in there that speaks to medium household income. And we're well under what they state, and we're well under the population.
Good.
So, but yeah, I think there were some items at the state, they were just pushing really hard back then to get everybody up there. We're the only MS4 in the county.
Yeah.
So when you have local developers who want to come in and build, and they have to go talk to Matt Bray, and Matt Bray says, well, you have to put in this, $85,000 storm capture device thing.
Kills us.
Like, well, we'll go build Mount Shasta then.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. I just want to build a building on a street that has a sidewalk already.
And then they build the basements and they look like crap. They make our neighborhoods just look like trash, like we live in.
Well, they
Valley or
involve maintenance
Tijuana.
agreements, which is that was our next step. And it is, we're still on the same path. We still have to get these maintenance agreements in place. I'm not gonna act like we're gonna get the waiver. We have to still stay compliant. So another step of this regulation is that I have to tell the developer, not only do you have to put a BMP in there, but here's this maintenance agreement. You're
Yeah.
gonna sign it and say you're gonna weed eat it every 4 months.
But then
or else-
who follows up on that? Because
Well, the staffing.
yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't get followed up on
The
anyway.
staffing levels that
We don't have the
are
staff to
supposed
do
go do
Yeah.
that, so. But I'm talked that to death, it's getting late. Maintenance projects, pretty much everything's on hold because we've got Highway 3, we've got getting prepped for the STIP on South Oregon, the paving, the Burgess, the Lennox. Capital grant projects, the STIP is 1.7 million, that's the paving alone, it doesn't include the water sewer. I think there's a number over there that says 300, we talked about it earlier. So 1.7 plus 300,000, it's about the estimates for the South Oregon paving. The RSTP, which is the Regional Surface Transportation Program, Greenhorn Striping Pedestrian Path. I think that one was about 90, I'm pulling it out of my head, Cindy. 98,000. The RSTP, again, which is the Yama Street ADA curb ramps, there's a small number, but there were money available, we put in for it, amazingly, we got it. That number, Cindy?
About 94, I think.
94, so 98 on Greenhorn, 94 on Yama. Augmenting of the Burgess Street sewer main replacement, which is,
I believe that's part of, isn't it? Prop 1.
right, Prop 168.
I believe it's
Stuff.
part of, is it not part of the actual dollars? I could be mistaken.
I'm not sure,
We're gonna try to get it covered
broke
with
that
the
out.
Prop
right.
1.
And then,
How much is that for Burgess? We got 98, 94, and
Burgess Road's gonna be, we're gonna try to get the Prop 1 sewer money to cover the repaving of Burgess. We may have to augment a little bit.
oh, what was it?
The Burgess is 5.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big one.
and then we've got the FHR, the flood hazard reduction stormwater retention grant still ongoing for what, That was the $5 million HR grant project that we've been working on all those years, building out sections of the Greenway. And then general fund equipment needs, I already mentioned because of the CARB compliancy, Air Resources Board for the state, the loader, the backhoe, the asphalt patch truck. Wrapping up some purchases, the Aero board is the other thing, the sign board. Like Caltrans runs, Ben was granted permissions to go ahead from council and purchase one of those before the end of the fiscal flip. He's pulled the asphalt spreader out, which I already mentioned, and there was another snowplow that he was granted. So he's got a snowplow coming for a full red truck. So,
That's positive thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
If
yeah,
we
you
get
know.
some snow.
Just keep swimming. And then the downtown parking lot was great this last year. Ben and his guys in the county, county did one of them. The other one went on good. That was great. It was a success. We had the chip seal up around Camel Track, Bold Street, and we got some streets turned colors last year. Shasta Avenue, Campbell, just came off our lists, our capital projects list, have been hanging around for a while. We've just been band-aiding and band-aiding stuff, a huge one. And there's a lot of others, but I've talked to you guys to death. Unless I have more pages to talk to you. I do. Water operating. Talked about the water operating staffing off the org chart already. I'll skip through that. Did I speak to the water tech 2? I missed that one too. So we'll be hiring a water manager and then a tech behind.
That was kind of those orange, purple boxes, sorry. on that word.
We've got M&O stuff happening over there for the maintenance operations, it upgrades the chlorination equipment, 20,000 here, 30,000 there, it's all in the budget. Upgrading the SCADA systems that talk, so the water guys can operate from their computers anywhere.
Oh, right.
We'll keep that, that's the SCADA, it's the online portal, it looks like that, you can turn a tank on and off from any cell phone anywhere.
Go back to the
Reach
chart.
Hawaii,
Can you go back to the chart?
Oh,
The hiring chart,
Public Works chart.
the public works chart?
Yeah.
That's the streets.
Thank you.
Oh, the art chart. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Arthur.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Red.
And I forgot to add to the notes, and you just brought that up, I meant, the wastewater treatment plant does not have a SCADA system.
Right.
And so with the ARPA money. we're gonna
What's
be-
a SCADA system?
It's
That's,
the internet protocol, kind of looks
Oh,
like the
that
last one
internet,
talks
yeah.
about.
basically, electronic controls,
You can
so,
turn valves on and off electronically. for computers.
so what we were kind of looking is,
The water
of
source
the
manager.
1.4 million
Yeah,
allocation of
yeah.
ARPA money, we can't find enough to spend it on or find it. It's been identified that our wastewater treatment plant really needs a SCADA system for alarms from things that turn
That
on.
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, right now, if we see a storm coming in on Friday or any day of the week, the guys will leave the wastewater plant, go, oh, one of us better stick around. So they keep, they'll swap off, so like, to have the alarms in place, the controls in place, just, it's huge, so you will be seeing that need coming in the next few years. Trying to get the project built up like that. Yeah, we brought that back up because so we have a water service manager movement, we got internal coming to fill it, and a water operator 2 coming in below. Out in the field on the other side, we've got water meter box replacement project that's gonna be coming. We did the meters over the last however many years. And it's time to go start all over and start doing the boxes. Thank goodness, a lot of them on Main Street will be taken care of by the Highway 3 project. We did again decrease FTE effort. And again, most likely need to increase depending on those capital projects, just like we talked about before on the other side. So I have anything done for you. Wrapping up the master plan update. Water, the urban water master plan update, wrapping that one up. The cathodic protection survey. I'll just skip over because we may be getting cathodic protection out of the dam removal if and when the dam removal happens with the new crossing, which I should probably speak to. A water pipe that has water running through it creates a charge, and that charge, electronic charge, eats the pipe away over years, right? So what an anode, a cathodic protection bed is, it's like an anode rod that's in your water heater, where it draws that current to that sacrificial lamb and it eats that bed. So we have that on the pipeline from Fall Creek. It's 24 miles of steel pipe. There's a lot of electrolysis on it. So we have a couple of anode beds, cathodic protection beds buried in the ground along this line. The current crossing from the KRRC engineers includes an anode bed replacement. So the sizing of that is probably going to take care of what our needs are right now. So this project here probably it's kind of paused. I'm not saying it's coming off, but it's paused. East Lennox and the filter plant improvements. So we've got the East Lennox water main at $1.4 million from Foothill down to Highway 3. We're jacking at 320 somewhat feet underneath all lanes of I-5. And then the filter plant improvements out at the top 3 mile lane, Mega Road, with the pods, and you drive by the filter plant, you see the pods. You're gonna suck a bunch of the media out, put new media in on some of them, and put underground underneath. Heard about it. So that was 1 point, just over a crack over 1 million for that. We expect to start construction on that late this summer. And State Route 3. Yeah, so. No, that's fine. I've talked around these already. I just want to see. Waiting the CDBG award letter for 3.2 million. City match 1.5 to 5 on that project. Offset partially by the Caltrans coordination agreement of that 1.3 million that I mentioned earlier that might go to 1.45. And then we expect a funding announcement on the Prop 1 application for the $5 million on the water supply and treatment grant, replacing Shasta Bell tanks at, so Shasta Bell, if we're not all aware, is down above Taylor. On the north south end of town.
South of town, yeah.
That's Shasta Bell. So those tanks are a $1.9 million project. And
Oh,
replacing
you put it all up there, you said, yes.
and then replacing the Hubbook tank at $1.8 million. And a Davis well improvement, we spoke to that improvements, at 580,000. Expecting to go to bid fall of 21 or early 22. This is the tsunami I spoke to before. ARRC, I'll just touch on it quickly. I've brought it to you numerous times and explained each time when we talked about the crossing of the river. It's not going to lake. It's not going to be a lake anymore. It's going to be a river. Paul and I, we all had concerns about the scour that happens when you turn a lake into a river. Again, it's free flowing. We had meander concerns because rivers and creeks tend to move over time. And with the pipe, so we've talked about this. I think I brought it to you 3 or 4 times already. I got another phone call from their engineers and they said, hey, guess what?
Change it
Got a
again.
new idea. So they asked, would the city be interested in going aerial again if we built it into the Daggett Road Bridge? Because for some reason, unbeknownst to the city, they are now replacing the Daggett Road Bridge. They're not utilizing it as they were going. They were going to just keep it. And now it's going to be a brand new design engineered bridge. And I said, look, you put me in kind of a tight spot, but I've taken this to my council numerous times. They're sick of me talking about an aerial bridge or underground bridge. I said, but since I have explained that each time we come to a decision, and I agree with it, Case agrees with it, everyone agrees with it, it is the best option at the time. This new option is the best option at the time. I know that's a political dance, but it is everything we ever wanted about the, we talked about hanging in an aerial in a Kevlar case so you could shoot with your 30-06 and all that. It's in a concrete bridge that has access to it, so we can get to it over the years. I said, draw something up and let me take a look at it. So I'm not giving you a hard yes, but draw something up, and let me take a look at it. So that's what the KRC is up to on the public works side of things on the, and in the end, it's all about protection of that pipeline. And we're gonna get the best thing that they can build for us when that project comes. And I know they're trying to save money. One of the first options was for them, it's not us, they're building it for us, you know, X million, and then they came back, what do you got, we go with this one because it's X million, and but in the end, it's all about protection of and the very best method of reinstalling that pipe, so you'll be hearing about that soon.
Hopefully with the Pace Engineering reviewing it as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they actually have that built into the agreements that we've been working toward.
Have
To
they,
where they design it entirely, we give them input, Rob and has been giving them input about pump curves and things of that nature, the nitty gritty engineering. And then they design the thing, and then Pace and the city reviews the plans. And then Pace gets paid by the project for all of that work. And also a construction observer on site when it happens. So Pace will actually send up a construction observer from Reddick to sit on that project as they're working on our pipeline. And
Wow.
it's all built in.
okay, my concerns are they're flip-flopping as much as KRRC is. And the other concern I have is the people that are paying them have a vested interest in paying them to support their change of attack on this situation.
I honestly believe it has something to do with the replacement of the Daggett Road Bridge, because that's never been spoken to. They wanted to hang a temporary one on the bridge, on the old wooden Daggett Road Bridge. And I don't really like that very much. Well, it's temporary, so I don't really like that much, but that's all they've ever really spoken to on Daggett. And now they're saying a complete full replacement of it, which is an aerial crossing. So I don't want to, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll bring it to you when they give me a napkin deadline, I guess. And I apologize for it, it's just they both called us last week, and said, hey, you guys got an hour to talk? I said, sure, let's talk. Hey, guess what?
All right, thanks.
So Red, I don't think I'm gonna go too deep into the rest of the dam
No,
removal stuff, and really the pipeline, the protection of the pipeline is really.
that's just a big old unknown bubble
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's coming. It's supposed to be no cost to the city.
Yeah, yeah, you know how it goes.
And the latest and greatest best thing this week.
You know, we've already spent thousands and thousands of dollars on manpower of our own.
Well, and our train fees.
Yes.
But we
And
change your mind.
fisheries.
Over and over and over. It's ridiculous.
Wow, are we down to parks now? Parks and community and.
There's my park sheet.
Okay.
We have one.
And some of them I looked at my email, but I didn't print out the page, so that's.
All right, finish up. So as I mentioned, we've got the reallocation of the full-time employees, and we utilize part-time employees to augment that, so we can actually get things cleaned up. And that's throughout the year. There are some internal vacancies transferring around down in the bottom left side there of our org chart for the maintenance division. We've got a great group of employees down there that have gone and certed, so they've trained up beyond what's required as a maintenance worker or senior maintenance worker. They're required to get a distribution 1 license and hold that to work in the city, and they're required to get a Class A driver's license for that too. And there's a number of folks down there that have gone and gotten B2s, which is a distribution's on the next higher level of distribution maintenance out in the field. There's a few out there, a number of them have gone for their treatment certs, they've got their treatment ones, their treatment twos, they're building their careers up, so as openings happen, they put themselves in for a good little, not quite a ladder, because it's a totally different job, but so that creates movement, so when you have something open up on the water side, it's typically fed by maintenance, because that's, we build a lot of our employees have maintenance. So I mentioned in the parks, we're gonna do the upper and lower Greenhorn parking lot. You may have seen them already begun doing some cleanup, getting prepped up for that. That's a park, so it's on here. A re-roof of the kiosk at Upper Greenhorn, another little project we're working on. It's in dire need of it. And then the vegetation removal of the Greenhorn Dam down in the spillway. That's multiple permits, regulatory compliancy. The dam inspector has told us almost every year that I can recall, you guys should go down there and cut that out. So yeah, how? And we got by with it for long enough, and now they're saying, get down there and cut it out.
Yeah.
So, Ben turned gray, did all that over that too. So he and Cindy are working on that contract. And then the electric gates at Upper, that quote came in at $7,200 and lower $5,300. And another $5,000 for the electrical work to drag electrical out to the gates, so.
How much for electrical?
5,000.
Small price to pay.
To pull out from the regular, put it underground or however we're gonna put it. I prefer to see it undergrounded.
Yeah, definitely.
As a whole, the city prefers to see power underground.
Mhm.
And then Arthur's working on the per capita grant for the parks, 177,000. Work that one.
Is it possible, pardon my interruption, is it possible to get power to the gazebo for special events?
Yes, and when I was in parks, I had it drawn up and I could have sworn we actually did it already and we didn't. So, yeah, at some point, I swear we rented a trencher and did that, but there's no GFCI outlet in the gazebo. So last time I was down there walking around, I was looking for the power plug and I asked Dennis, where's the plug? So, yes, and it's in the, it's just one of those little projects that we're kind of stepping away from this year in the parks because of budget and manpower headed up elsewhere.
But I was thinking if you were digging trenches,
Sure,
same location.
yeah, yeah,
That's high, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. It's a good idea. I will tell them. Since we got them mobilized, we're going to trench over there. And then we also had the Yreka Aquatics Park grant application review pending.
Has anybody heard anything on that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I heard from the grant manager just last week. They are reviewing that grant and Megan was going over it with a fine tooth comb. So she wanted some clarification on a few points. So I got together with Robert Richards and we were able to submit and answer all of the questions that the grant manager had.
Good,
Excellent.
Thank
Good.
you.
Definitely looking at it.
good.
Wow.
Well, that's something.
So then horizon issues in the park, obviously we've all heard about the special district option for Parks and Rec. Other horizon issues, tennis courts and the skate park, met with Corey last week.
Like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago already? I don't.
Yeah,
anymore.
almost 3,
I really don't know
actually.
what day it is. So, yeah, tennis courts and skate park at Horizon, we do have on order a new part to replace the part at the skate park that broke.
Good.
It's gonna be super fun. Wanted to treat it like a broken slide, take it down, get a new slide as fast as possible. So Ben got that ordered up. That'll be fun. And I think you're gonna hear some positive stuff coming out of skate park really soon.
Good.
And then beyond that, looking at funding for building out something bigger. Update the parks and greenways master plans. That's on the horizon here. Accomplishments in the park. I think we had some more from Ben too, but the split rail fence was pretty great. Getting
Yeah,
that done. That's
looks
something we've been
nice.
staring at for
Looks
8 years.
Looks nice.
Missing
Upper-
tooth over there.
upper
Missing
and
tooth. Can we
lower.
go plug that?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it keeps the,
So it's upper and lower now. And that's
yeah.
yeah,
Lower is
yeah, we
one
did the
too. I
upper,
saw
the
that.
west lawn last year and then the lower. part this
Just
year.
got done, looks nice.
Yeah, keeps those high schoolers in their four-wheel drives from spinning donuts over my sprinklers.
Yeah.
They still go around behind that.
Yeah, they'll
Right
still
on.
get out there.
They'll always.
Yeah, they still go around behind there.
Yeah. So community facilities, we got normal M and O, keeping everything running, and the facilities themselves. We got the garage doors, municipal service center, which would be the last quote of 16,900 for doing 4 bays. They're energy saving. It's an ergonomic improvement thing. The doors were, I think we built the yard in the 60s. We just don't need to get that people pay for. So that's a great project. Service center, we still have this MS4 compliancy issue of building a compliant wash rack and dumpster at the yard. So I'll probably put a slight half a pause button on that one until we hear back on the waiver letter. So that wouldn't be required if the waiver comes in. Trash hauling from the service center, Yreka transfers, hauling it out.
Or it's, you wanted
Is
to
that-
contract for it because it was self-hauled.
Right, currently self-hauling, and we're
Because
looking at
equipment's
contracting. and we're
obsolete.
transfer. We have a dumpster at the yard, and whatever trash we pull out of the parks and all that,
Yeah.
we pay someone to go get, take it out of the yard, dump it in a dumpster. And then when it's full, we pay someone to drive it out to the dump, drop it off. It just seems silly if we can get someone that just, if it's on the trash, right, just get the right dumpster and have them get rid of it.
Yeah.
And that all comes back in the MS4 compliance thing. It's supposed to be under a shed where the cats can't get to the walls. Holiday decorations. We haven't talked holiday decorations in ages.
And thank you.
We're looking at
But they got
replacing
put
them.
up last year.
Looking at replacing them. We've limped them along as much as we can. We've got a quote for $45,000.
We need to replace them.
Yeah.
So
We need to replace
I
them.
don't know how old they are, but those bows and garlands are ridiculously.
They've been there since the 70s.
I'd say they gotta be 40, 50 years old.
Yeah.
I think they're the same
$45,000
ones.
for
since
bows
I
and
was a
lights?
kid.
Yeah,
They are.
They gotta be at least 40, 50 years old.
We spray paint the felt bows every other year with red paint. You guys can tell.
Well, they look okay from afar,
Yeah.
except that some of them are starting
And at
to,
night.
You get close calls. It's not all there.
They're a mess.
some of them like me are starting to show their age.
We're gonna continue moving on our roofing facilities, maybe the theater next, City Hall will be replaced with the ADA remodel project, so we're gonna push this off. There is some work overhead with the facilities guys that we're gonna take care of. In the meantime, to keep us going.
There's grant funding available through the American Recovery thing. Maybe you can use that on the theater for the roofing
HVAC.
and the HVAC, right?
Yeah, the HVAC number came in 220,000 after Cindy dusted it off. Right? 230, 230,000 for that.
That's
That's on the
actually what,
agenda, next agenda.
that's what Wayne Mahal just paid, 230.
That's
Oh,
good.
Good, I'm glad we came in on someone else's number.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's a bigger place too. Ours
Yeah,
is.
Ours is bigger,
Yeah.
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 Wow, that's good.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Capital outlay on the grants, got the EDA grant with the SCDC, which is Arthur at 250,000. Brownsville EPA with SCDC, Cindy at 600,000. River City Hall ADA bathroom. That was at 500,000 PI and 500K of city funds. Transfers from water and sewer. Senior bus, where is the senior bus?
Subrecipient agreement, $100,000.
How much?
Subrecipient agreement,
We're dealing with that with CDBG
Okay.
and then Ben can cover it.
so we're getting close to ordering.
Yes.
Have they been informed? Hospice or Madrone, whatever
Yes.
you
I'm
call it.
talking to them.
Great. Contact with them.
Is their bus broken?
No, I think their bus is still running.
OLD,
Oh, I know.
It's
it is.
just-
antiquated,
Yeah.
really a lot of miles on it.
So we're
And
gonna sell it and make some money off of it.
whoever sells it might get a couple grand. I don't think it's worth more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not owned by us. though.
No, it's their bus.
It's
Their bus.
We just-
You can make a good motorhome out of it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, this day and age, that would be.
You cruise around, do art van grow stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So then the CDBG COVID-19 grant.
So we bought it.
The cats aren't listening.
CDBG COVID-19 grant, small micro business allocation, 85,000, the Carnegie Library grant awarded at 250,000. Horizon and facilities, we'll look at master planning. We don't have a facilities master plan. Kind of, that's gonna break soon. Let's look into too many years. So we really need a facilities master plan. We're hanging in there now. It took us years to get to the roofing and do where we are, but we are getting roofing done now, which is great. And fire station, spoken to, the existing maintenance and the new station capital project. Animal control fence was an accomplishment. The ongoing roof I just spoke to, we've been doing as much as we can with the money we get every year. And then we do have some deferred maintenance down at the service center, the courtyard. We just, it's like the contractor that doesn't pound nails in his own house. Right?
Yeah.
Come home at the end of the day, and it's 3:30, and we're not gonna.
Never until I
We're
get
not
ready
gonna
to
paint
sell.
the yard, we're not, so it's one of those things that's just been on the back burner for too long, and we need to get going on that, about 15,000 a year, start addressing it. Get that facility brought back up before it's too far, and that would be in the facilities master plan. I just spoke to also, so you guys need to roof it, paint it, put in energy efficient doors and windows, so we're a little ahead of the ball. We have been making some small rainy day project stuff when Public Works ever really has a rainy day down there, Ben and those guys, but when they do some housework. Back truck shed was great. It was one of those projects that takes forever, takes a lot of paperwork, and Cindy helped Ben, and they got through it, and it was awesome.
Arthur.
And Arthur, sorry. Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
And I guess that one was around so long, probably predates. So got that done, had some local contractors build it. If you haven't seen it, it's not all that exciting, but it's a great little garage for a beautiful truck.
Yep, serves a purpose.
And that beautiful truck
Valuable purpose.
helps our efficiency is out in the field like. It's crazy how much work we can get done with those combination trucks. And the fire hall roof.
Yep.
So and that was a huge one. The foam that we shoot down that we decided to land on, we found that from the county maintenance guys. And they've been shooting all their buildings with this 2-part foam. It's just it's so easy and simple, and we don't have to get up the roof.
Yeah.
The tub of Henry's
Yeah.
every winter,
Uh-huh.
every
Good.
spring. No sparks in that. That's all I have.
Oh, yes, Paul.
Matt, is there a possibility of reactivating a bid process to, I may be the only one, but I don't think I am, I've talked with Dwayne, to get that lower footbridge replaced, lower Greenhorn
Right.
Park that goes across the bottom of the spillway there at Oak Tree Circle.
It is, and I think I spoke to it, I didn't, I should have, part of the updating of the parks master plan. It's antiquated, we need to get back into it. You all need to take a look at it and say, is this a priority? Matt, go do this. So yeah, it's at its point. We need to make a decision.
It served
If
its
that's going to be
usefulness.
a part of the master plan of the trail system of the parks in the long term. So is it worth doing now? Is it worth replacing or so? It's a good point, and it should be folded in and remembered for the parks master plan.
Yes,
As a park user, I have used that bridge many times to let people with multiple dogs walk by. I take my dog down and stand there till they go. So I'm not the only one who uses it for that purpose. So
I
it does
use
serve a
too.
function.
It does. With the new pedestrian access and the bike lanes coming in there that we'll be building here. With one of these next projects, the RSTP project that's coming in to do that is going to put sidewalk in front of the substation and then sidewalk up, well, a trail up to tie into the big bridge. So it would be, get that in there, I think, my opinion, is to get that in, take a look at it, and then after Pacific Power comes in and fences off the rest of their substation, and we barricade the rest to keep the camps out of the dam face. I think that'd be a prime time to have a discussion,
I think so
for you
too.
to have the discussion
Definitely.
about prioritizing that bridge replacement. For sure. I think the usage will just change just enough. to where we can talk about it with the master plan and say,
Yeah.
yeah, we
I
do.
think it's a necessity.
I'm gonna go on record as saying, I think we need to look at, I think we need to start looking at bid processes, bid in June, and then decide, because we don't know, PPL is gonna drag their, we know they're gonna probably be July before.
July.
Yeah, they're dragging their feet, and I mean, we can't necessarily wait on them. They do things at their timeline, and their timeline does not fit ours. We found that already.
And you're speaking directly to the fencing.
Right, and that's 'cause
I'm speaking, no, I'm speaking, yeah, the fencing, but yeah, I'm speaking vis-a-vis the bridge. I'm not saying do the bridge in June. I'm saying
Right.
start looking, get it out and see, get the old bids out, see what it looked like they were. Then start looking at, some new bids and see what they're talking about. Maybe you need to do, maybe you do, well, that bridge is pretty well steel, except for the floorboards, I think. So, but I mean, maybe you're not gonna do a substantial bridge as you have to drive across into the mining of, so maybe you do a steel structure, superstructure, and then you got, 4x for your bottoms or something,
Yeah, I think with the current status of the supply chains and the bridge manufacturers, it would be wise for us to get going on at least figure out what the time is. Because trying to buy a bridge for the FHR project, and we can't even get a quote. The only quotes we could get were steel bridges, and that's not what was in the design. So there's still, somebody can still maybe sell them steel.
Well, the other thing you could do is if you have a basic, not a design, but just a basic concept, and you know where you want the steel, where you want the wood, you go out to Jake Nottache, and you go out to Steve Young, and you go over to Cooper Built in the Valley and hand them because they're local, and hand them a thing and say, hey, I don't know how the bidding is done, but say, but if you can't get anybody else to come in and you advertise it, just hit up some of our locals, because I think three of them do well, and there's also Scott Valley Metals, and they all do good work, good structural work.
Lots of structural.
And that's basically what you have in that one, the drive across bridge, which is overkill. I understand that for what we're looking at, but that's just a very nice structural bridge with those big, So the other thing would be to look at replacing the boards that are bad on that really beautiful footbridge that's covered.
Yes.
I counted about 54. I counted about 80, but there are about 54 that look like they just really should be replaced. And I know that we can't seal it, otherwise that would help it, but you can't. You could, but it'd be just a pain in the neck. You'd have to.
It was designed in such a manner as to replace.
Yeah.
Rather than. Seal in place.
And that may be something that, you could plan for October, November, September, October, November, when theoretically we're getting some rain, and you can, it's not so it has to be done in the summer.
No, and I think, as soon as the parks budget can handle it, and it's a strong project to take a look at.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're just gonna, like I said, we're gonna have to back off some park projects and just do the maintenance. If there's a broken board, we'll replace it now, but, and then as you well know, lumber prices are stupid.
Oh, they just went up Friday. Can you do us a favor? When you're getting ready, when you're gonna put the log in that you cut down a tree out there, and you're gonna put it in for turtles, I think.
Oh.
For more turtle have, can you let the council know in case some of us want to come out? Because those turtles, when I walk out there, that's a huge draw. I'll point it out to a parent and she'll go, oh, we didn't know they were there. They love it. They love that split rail fence you guys put in too, right there on the, you know what I'm talking about?
North Shore.
North Shore. They love that split, and they'll walk around that split rail fence. So just hold on. And so, yeah, I'd love to see, if I could, when you put the log, when you drag it in, and, because the
Yeah.
turtles, are just gonna take to it.
I know, last time we drug logs, we got kayaks, and it was a Saturday project with the SGPGA, and it was by them, it wasn't how it worked, but I was there, because it sounded fun. So we got kayaks, and we tied off to all the logs that were over on the spillway, and rode them over with manpower, and stuck them over there, what we were calling Turtle Bay at the point. Turtle Bay on North Shore.
Well, if you can,
It sounds like something.
even if it's on the weekend, that would be great to know.
Yeah,
And you can borrow one of my kayaks, if anybody needs kayaks. Can I make a comment on this? The wells have been drilled on Foothill. I talked to Alex yesterday afternoon. She does know that, I think it's at the very back of the property, we're gonna need to take out 6 inches.
6 inches.
Up to 6 inches. She was contacting the company that she works with, that works with the EPA. The front from the fence back, from the fence back about 40% of the way, looks like it could be more than 6 inches. She won't commit right now, but she said as soon as she said probably around the 18th to 21st of June, she thinks she'll be able to give us a clear on what we need to do.
I hope so.
But it wasn't as bad as I thought. I mean, we were hoping we only go 2 inches.
Right.
But they found, for whatever reason, I think they found more at the front than they did at the back. They expected to find more at the back, but the back was where the house was,
Right.
or the office.
Right.
So maybe not. So anyway, but that's just to kind of give you a heads up.
Do I get to go play tennis with my staff?
So anyway, we kind of lost track, but the purpose was just a lot of balls bouncing with all these capital projects.
Let's play Mr. Booth.
Yeah, so it was just to have fun, and if it's something.
It's a lot.
donate some balls for the kennels.
wow.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah, so anyway, just food, and I know there's a closed session, so any questions?
Good job, Debbie.
Sorry.
I'm taking mine to
Thanks,
my dog.
Everybody, Matt,
I have a big dog.
Chief,
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Cindy,
you.
Art,
I didn't get
Arthur,
lost. My feelings are hurt.
Liz.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Greta,
That's why you need to get one.
does the city website have postings of all the job vacancies?
Just the city website, yes. What about it?
Are
Do
they
they have-
posted?
Yeah.
Are they-